All right, so it is live, I guess.
Great.
All right. Yo, what is up, guys? Survive Combatants here, and this is actually my first podcast. This is a new series called Survive Talks, and it's basically where I talk about different game subjects with a whole bunch of different people, and this time around, I'm actually going to be talking about Resident Evil, survival horror, and all that. Since in recent times, this has been a really, really big thing for me. I love survival horror, and I'm over here with somebody that loves survival horror or Resident Evil as much as me.
Mm-hmm.
Introduce yourself, Ari Talk.
Yeah, this is Resident Evil Talk, and I, run a Resident Evil channel. It's pretty much just Resident Evil, but sometimes I blur the lines with other related survival horror for sure. And I've been doing it for a couple years now, so good to be here.
Yeah, and just like I said, this is the first episode. I will be doing more of these, but in all seriousness, like I'm really excited about this because first time doing this. Just so let's get to it. We have topics here that we're going to talk about. And our first topic is, what is our first experience with survival horror and our favorite moment / personal experience? Ari Talk, you go first.
Awesome. Thanks. Let's see. It's kind of hard to say my first experience. I mean, definitely with survival horror. There were a couple influences before that got me into liking horror in the gaming genre. But yeah, I'll just start with Resident Evil because that was probably the profound kind of moment where it was 1997 when I came across the first Resident Evil. And to make a long story short, that I was more of a Nintendo gamer. Like I had Nintendo, Super Nintendo, and I wanted the Nintendo 64. And I didn't really have, my family didn't have like the money to own everything. So I ended up renting Resident Evil and the PlayStation every time I wanted to play Resident Evil. It was ridiculous. We rented it so many times. We should have just paid for a PlayStation. But for real, I mean, pretty much every week I was to just play it, and I didn't even play with a memory card until probably maybe RE3 I did. But and so when I first got Resident Evil, I didn't know what it was. It just looked cool. It just even the image of Chris, with the gun and on the front cover and the bold letters Resident Evil, like, just stood out to me as a 10-year-old kid. So I was like, all right, because back then I was totally into like Mortal Kombat. I was into kind of gore and shit, and I was like, this looks pretty awesome. So when I first got it, I didn't know anything about Resident Evil, and I was even confused at first, like what they were they zombies or whatever. I didn't know what exactly, when I came across the first zombie, I didn't even know. But I was pretty scared. It was a scary moment, and because you don't even know what you're doing, yeah. And you have no idea what this is. And I just remember, yeah, I was playing as Jill a lot because it was a little easier to play with. Barry takes care of the first zombie for you and stuff. So, and I was playing with my brother at the time, but he got disinterested pretty quickly. But he was older than me, and I just remember trying to get him involved in it, and that's kind of like why I'm on YouTube and stuff. It's like I'm always trying to get my friends to play Resident Evil. I want about it and stuff. So I don't know. I guess the biggest thing was back then, Resident Evil just stood out from every game out there at the time. It was probably the first kind of like cinematic kind of horror game that I ran across. The presentation of it was astounding. The graphics, were back then it was kind of like realistic graphics actually, and so it just really stood out as something special than having live actors in the full motion cutscenes and everything. So I just knew I had to stick with this series, and there's so much more I could say about it. But yeah, I just remember uh, not knowing anything about it, and then wanting to know everything about it at that point, and just knowing how like amazing it was at that time. Because like I said, I was playing. I actually started with an Atari, so I went from Atari to NES to Super Nintendo. So like to go from that to Resident Evil, just it was a very great quality game. I knew I wanted to stick around and see what happened. So that's probably my favorite moment. Is I think even too. I'll just say one more thing is I really wanted to push through the different game. With the tank controls. I remember trying to get used to that, and I remember playing as Jill, and then Barry like basically he disappears, and I remember the coolest moment was when I found Barry on the balcony with Forrest, the dead body of Forrest, and I was so excited. I was like, I can't believe I actually progressed in this game because it seemed like a very difficult game, a very mature game for me at the time. So I got really addicted to that feeling of feeling lost and then actually getting like a cutscene, which was like accomplishing. So I got addicted to that process as well. So
Yeah,
that's
and I mean,
pretty much it.
how I got introduced to survival horror is that I was a gamer ever since I was like late 2 years old. My dad bought a PlayStation and he had two games for it: Mortal Kombat Trilogy and Crash Bandicoot.
Great. That's great to
Because
start with.
yeah, because the game that I played first was Mortal Kombat Trilogy. It's because I like the dragon on the front of it, so I was like, "Ooh, dragon!" So I picked out Mortal Kombat first. Got my ass beat in it. Not gonna lie. And then after a while, I just started playing Mortal Kombat and then Crash Bandicoot, and then 2004, I believe was when Resident Evil Apocalypse came out. I believe it was.
Yeah.
And, at the time, my mom and dad split up, and my mom met this guy, and he was a huge gamer. I mean, absolutely huge gamer. So, he knew what Resident Evil was. I didn't, but we bought the movie by DVD, and we watched it, and I just remember liking the movie. I remember my first the first gaming crush, I guess you could say, was like it was either Jill Valentine, Resident Evil 3, or Claire Redfield. And I thought that Jill was so badass that I was like, Bill, let me play this game. And he's like, all right. So he bought he didn't buy the director's cut. He actually bought the long box version of Resident Evil with the Chris on the front and everything. And I held it in my hand and I was thinking it was so cool. And then I played it, and I remember I got so scared. But it was a really, really fun experience. And after a while, I started playing it more. And then I actually beat it by the time I believe I was like 4.5. So I had it for like 6 months, I believe, and then I beat it. So
Wow.
after that, for my birthday, he got me Resident Evil 2. And this is one of my favorite moments out of any game. I really haven't told people about this because it's kind of how do you say it? embarrassing.
Okay.
But when I was playing Resident Evil 2, all right, I was already used to the tank controls and everything because of Resident Evil 1. And I went in to the Kendo gun shop. And I heard absolutely nothing. I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. And he was like, freeze, who are you? What are you doing here? And I was like, and then I got through all that. And then the ammo right where the crate is. It's on the left of the door.
Oh yeah.
That was my first mistake ever of Resident Evil. And playing Resident Evil 2, and I believe I was 5. Yeah, I had to be 5. At that young of age, I thought Resident Evil 2 looked realistic and everything. So, because it was definitely better looking graphically than, Resident Evil 1. But I picked up that ammo, and then I started to go back, and the zombies started just pouring in and eating Kendo alive. And I remember just getting so freaked out, and I just like, and I dropped the controller and I just ran. I was screaming, running, to my mom's boyfriend, like, oh my god, I'm scared. And he was like,
oh, like you actually were not like as Leon
yeah,
or Claire. You physically
yeah,
like.
yeah. I played or I think I was playing as Claire because I saw Claire on the front. I was like, huh, she kind of looks badass. So I just put Claire's disc in, and then by the time he calmed me down, I came back and it was like, you are dead. I'm like, huh. So yeah, Resident Evil, or I have a really, really, really good time with Resident Evil 2, and that's really why I wanted to be redone a whole bunch. But yeah, basically I started out Resident Evil when I was young. I haven't played that many survival horrors now, except for Dead Space, but that hasn't been since like 2011. And Silent Hills I haven't played since I was 6. So I mean,
yeah,
so I'm not really.
I totally understand. Like, I think survival horror games have been out, but they're not
As relevant.
Stream, yeah, as RE or
Yeah.
Hell. So
yeah, so I mean, that was basically my first experience. Let's see, second topic. What is survival horror and what started it?
yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that first, or
I was thinking about talking about the first Alone in the Dark and the first Resident Evil.
right.
like how it started and everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I hear. I personally never played Alone in the Dark, but I definitely understand where whenever that topic comes up with people, they always say that Alone in the Dark is kind of the first survival horror, or the first horror at least game, but RE was what was coined the genre phrase of survival horror type of. I don't know too many details on that, but
yeah. And even though like Resident Evil took, in my opinion, even though Resident Evil 1 took like a lot of inspiration from Alone in the Dark, in my eyes, I've seen gameplay of not Alone in the Dark, Sweet Home, if you've heard of that.
Oh yeah,
and yeah, it looks just like Sweet Home with all the paranormal stuff, or not paranormal, but the zombies, the door animations and all that. I feel that when Shinji Mikami was thinking of this game, that that's what he wanted.
I think that was basically the pitch to Capcom. Was basically, yeah, let's kind of visualize in a 3D environment, kind of what Sweet Home was. Yeah, I think was the sales pitch to them. And I've never played Sweet Home either, but right, I know that there was a lot of influences from that, definitely.
Yeah, in my eyes, Resident Evil 1 looked like a remake of Sweet Home. So when when I hear Resident Evil Remake, I was like, huh, the game that's a remake of a remake.
Oh man, there's so many.
You know,
I could make jokes about even just in Resident Evil. When I was talking about stuff last year, when because RE1 got remastered, but
yeah,
they also re-released it on the Origins collection that came with Zero. So it was like tongue twister saying like uh the RE1 remake remastered.
yeah, remaster.
Like
Oh
everyone is
man,
just so obsessed, trying to yeah, keep that alive basically. So it's just so funny that it's like, yeah, Resident Evil remade, then remastered and re-released again.
yeah, and I'm trying, or I have the Resident Evil HD remake on my PlayStation 4, and I've played it on GameCube at my friend's house, and I remember liking it, but I got it free for the PlayStation free game for the month or whatever. Um, and I haven't played it a whole lot because it was so different from the original Resident Evil. So now I kind of have to like relearn everything.
Mhm.
But I'm planning on buying the HD collection. But the thing is that I like the cover of the European um, HD collection. So what I'm gonna do is buy it off of eBay. Like if you've seen the European version of the cover art, it looks a whole lot better than just the other or the US version. It's
Yeah,
kind of
when
like
yeah,
Resident Evil
describe it 'cause
4.
oh,
It's basically like one half of the page is like the train, the other half is the mansion, and in the middle are like just this red bar, and it has zombies, like zombie faces on it. It looks absolutely amazing.
it's
But
so
to
weird. I
me,
would think I could visualize it. I would think I had seen it before. I don't know why I can't see it in my head right now, but
yeah, like in my eyes, I really want to buy the European version of Resident Evil 4 because of just the cover. Because just seeing that or the chainsaw guy like holding the chainsaw with all the red and stuff, I was like, this should have been the cover for Resident Evil 4. Like that was,
oh
or
yeah.
if you guys haven't seen it,
Yeah,
it's
Resident Evil
amazing.
4 yeah, the what do you call it? The PAL release or the
Yeah, the
um
PAL release.
yeah, the with the red and the black forest with the chainsaw guy.
Yeah,
I really like that. I don't know. I personally really like that.
yeah. I really wish they would have done that instead of like the Leon in the front and everything, because that the PAL version gave me such an unsettling feeling that I really just wanted that, and that's another thing I'm gonna have to buy when when I get enough money. But next point, or the next topic, I guess, is what impact did survival horror bring? uh and I mean,
Yeah.
I have a whole bunch of notes for that.
Okay. You start off that.
um an impact that survival horror brought was the strong female characters like Regina from Dino Crisis, Jill Valentine, Claire Redfield, and which Claire is one of my favorite characters of all time. Like out of any game character, Claire and Jill are one of my favorites. And especially in the 90s when they had to combat, Lara Croft, Samus, Sonya Blade, Chun Li, etc. All those strong female characters, and Capcom got Jill, Claire, and Regina into the mix.
That is true. I never really thought about that. Yeah.
Yeah, like it like I always played as the female characters. Like I played as Jill when Resident Evil 1 came out. I played as Claire. I loved Resident Evil 3 because it had Jill in it. Um and yeah, so and also Ada Wong. I forgot I forgot to add Ada Wong. But yeah, let's see. Another impact is that Resident Evil 1's turning zombie is still considered one of the most scariest moments in gaming.
I agree with that.
And
Yes.
also, yeah, in my I believe that the Resident Evil Japan or one Japan version, I actually like that a whole lot more than the remake version, because you see the head drop and then just turn, and then it's just his skull showing. I actually like that more than the remake.
Oh yeah, the uncensored, right?
Yeah,
Oh God, yeah. Uncensored got so botched trying to get it over to America that yeah, that was such a frustrating time. But yeah, I have a funny story just to interject. Uh, what was interesting is technically my first Resident Evil copy was Resident Evil 1 on PC. And at the time, my PC back then, I mean, this is like 97 or 98 by this point, my PC could
damn.
not, yeah, I couldn't actually play Resident Evil. I mean, the game was too big for that. Talking about PCs that literally, I want to say only had like 1 or 2 gigabytes of hard drive, like, I mean,
Yeah,
that was how bad they were. And, but I was able to pop the disc in and open up the video files so I could see the uncensored. So even though I couldn't play it, I would play the uncensored scenes from that game over and over. Yeah, I was like, oh my God, why did this? And
yeah,
I'll tell you right now, I have a big one of the frustrations I've had as a Resident Evil fan since the start is this one moment it's censored, then the next game it's not censored, then they censor it, then they uncensor. Like there was
yeah,
always in the early days, or even today, yeah, it's like this this push and pull of like how much are we going to censor or not, and there is some history with that for like censorship in America and Japan and the differing laws all the time, and it's so weird. It's just, but I just felt like interjecting because yeah, I mean, it was something. Yeah, it's so graphic. It is so graphic, but nowadays that's like so cheesy now, but in a way, but it's
yeah. And I mean, I didn't, I didn't watch the uncensored version until like, let's see, I'm 17 now, and I didn't watch it until I think I was either 11 or 12, and I remember watching it. I'm like, Jesus freaking Christ, they're like these dogs are like ripping these or his arms apart. Like I was like, oh, great. And
yeah,
then
it's
the news article, they replaced that as well, and I was like, huh, that's a little awesome.
yeah, and it's those those days. That was one of the things I really loved about Resident Evil was the gore. I mean, there's so many reasons why I like Resident Evil, so it's like don't think that I just care about graphics and
Yeah,
gore kind of thing, but um it it is, I don't know, it was just so interesting. I think when I was a kid, I always wanted to feel like I was 17, 20, like I was an adult enough to watch these things
yeah,
or something. So there was
same.
something like so compelling about all the gore and stuff, but um and then just to the only point I have about like what impacts survival horror pretty much is I have a more generalized, kind of point. So you might have some more like better specifics than me, but um I think it was just actually it was a more story driven, a more story driven, a more cinematic
Ooh,
experience. Because long history to gaming, even in the 70s, there's Atari, there were arcades, very simplistic stuff. But it really wasn't until I think around 85, I want to say, is when home consoles like the NES, the Nintendo, um, that's when, to me, gaming really started. Because I remember seeing documentaries about the history of that, and right before Nintendo, video games were seen as
Child
a
toys.
very and something that wasn't going to uh, be a booming industry in any way. Like there were a lot of skeptics, a lot of people that didn't want to invest in things. But then Nintendo came on the scene and proved everyone wrong. Like this is what people want and this is how you do it. And Nintendo, for a good, I would say 20, just over 20 years, had such a hold on the gaming industry for sure. Um, but that's the thing, is that from 85 till 96, when Resident Evil came out, didn't really have a lot of cinematic games. You had a lot of things that were trying to be cinematic in the best way they could, but they were 2D. They just they didn't have voice acting, so there was a lot of limitations.
Yeah.
But then when Resident Evil came on the scene, it was a whole different experience. So I that's why I always say, like, Resident Evil was such a uh, leader in
Revolutionary.
revolutionary. It was a leader, and it came on the scene in um I'm trying to think of games that came out around that time. I mean, it was also right before I want to say a year or two before uh GoldenEye on Nintendo 64 came out, which is I mean, if you think about it, like, look at GoldenEye, there's no voice acting in that, and that was as close of a cinematic experience you could get without Resident Evil, So if you compare Resident Evil, I mean, it was the voice acting, so it's not really survival horror, but it was packaged within the survival horror. And then everything you see after that, you see these more cinematic games. You see Silent Hill come up. Gee, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of some more cinematic, but like games just got more involved in trying to make it like an interactive kind of movie, So I think that was something that really stood out for me.
Yeah, and I mean, something else that helped that out was the live action actors and everything for for the first game. Now they use CG in the second game, but when I first played Resident Evil 1, I thought it was so cool that they used the real actors for
Right.
for the game. I was like, huh, that's something different.
Well, to that point too, even though, they do CG, it started in the second game, the motion started. I mean, they were doing obviously motion capture with 3D gaming, but there, there's just so much heavy motion capture with Resident Evil, and I think that a lot of people are trying to catch up to that. Resident Evil was really paving that way of, like, this is, step up your game, and everyone, is kind of like following that kind of style. So, there's so many other nuanced kind of things that just, when you start thinking about it, it was such a big influencer.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and also, like, we got in, or also another impact is that we have, like, because of survival horror, we have, like, really, like, tech, or really good technical, stuff with the door animations for Resident Evil, the fog for Silent Hill. Like, that's another thing, is that Silent Hill, they use the fog to just load everything in. And and speaking about Silent Hill and Resident Evil, Pyramid Head and Nemesis are still considered one of the scariest villains in gaming. Also, as well,
I believe it.
But other points that I had was that it revolutionized horror. Just like always, like it made you feel uneasy that you have to conserve your ammo. You can't fight every enemy. You have to conserve your resources, your health. You have to check every health in place. You have to use or your ammo on on enemies that you can't take on, or I don't know how to say it. damn, I don't know how to say that. Just use your ammo for people that you need to use it on. I guess I'm trying to say.
Right, like there was a lot of strategy with survival
Yeah,
horror. Is there's that all that strategy, and it's that also the pacing of uh disempowering the player and then empowering the player by giving more ammo, health. You start collecting and scavenging things, and then stronger enemies, more enemies present, and then you're just it's a constant like empowering the player, then and that's survival. Yeah, it's always keeps you on edge like that.
yeah. I mean, like, I just like Resident Evil like the most out of every survival horror because it gave or one, it gave me like amazing characters that I could follow and look up to while I was growing up. Silent Hills was like a little too advanced for me, I guess you can say, when I was younger. Like I said, I was like 6 years old when I played Silent Hill. But four or when I was 4 and 5 playing, Resident Evil, I could like, I could identify, being a cop and wanting to help, any survivor that's in the building. Claire Redfield, I always liked, bikes and or motorbikes, and I always thought she looked cool and stuff. So I was like pushing to like save her from the zombies and everything.
Yeah, you
And
bring up a good point. Yeah.
Silent Hill, I don't know. It just like with James losing his wife, like I just couldn't connect with it because I was that young. But yeah, other points that I had what that impacted or what impact that survival horror but was the amazing sound effects like Dino Crisis. When I played that game, I believe I was 7 when I played Dino Crisis, and it made me feel like I was actually in a horror-esque Jurassic Park environment with the futuristic keypad sounds, the dinosaur roars, and the keypad unlock sound, which was always my favorite. And the background zombies in Resident Evil 2, like when you're outside and you hear all the grunts from the city, and I mean just so much more like sounds that that make you like tense and afraid
Yeah.
of what's on the other side.
Yeah, I mean the soundtracks for games and the sound effects, were much deeper with stuff like Resident Evil and Silent Hill as opposed to other games at that time. Other games, yeah, there's definitely cool music for sure in games previous to that. I got a lot of nostalgia for some Nintendo, Zelda, even Donkey Kong Country. I mean, like just things off the top of my head, soundtracks, but they weren't maybe as deep and as subtle as like the save room themes in Resident Evil and the and Silent Hill. Honestly, that music in Silent Hill is amazing. That stuff is nothing has really topped it for me in terms of how deep those can get and evoke those feelings that you're kind of alluding to. That's definitely an impact for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like, and that was the next point that I brought up was the music. One of the most impactful things to be in survival horror was the memorable music. And in my honest opinion, by far, Resident Evil 2 and Silent Hill 2 had the best soundtrack in probably all of survival horror. And I mean, people can refute me on that, but I have always loved Resident Evil 2's soundtrack, and that doesn't mean I don't love Resident Evil 1 and 3. I absolutely love, the safe room. Like one of my favorite safe room themes is Free from Fear, which is Resident Evil 3's safe room. And will always be my favorite because I think I said this in one of your live streams,
Mhm.
where I don't know, when I played Resident Evil 3 for the first time, and I was trying to get Jill out of the city. and I went into that safe room. I think that was one of the first songs that I heard in the game that really stuck to me. And just that piano, just the doom, and then when they started playing it, I was like, and I just had like a chilling feeling in my back because I know, like, I saw Nemesis on the front cover, and I kind of had a feeling that they were going to do what they did with Mr. X. And I just had a chilling feeling because I had a feeling that he was going to, that Nemesis was going to chase me around, and I was like, so scared, but also at peace because I was at the safe room, but I was also fearful because that song, or Free for Fear, made me scared of what's on the outside. But
Yes,
I
safe room. Yeah, I mean that's the beauty of how the safe room music. Pretty much all of those early ones that I have a lot of nostalgia for. They equally give you that safe feeling, like this is a room of sanctuary, like nothing's gonna come in here. But at the same time, they do give you that feeling of, oh shit, I can't stay in here forever. Like you're gonna have to go back out.
yeah.
You're gonna. So it's an unsettling kind of like. It's not something usually you feel like that peaceful about. It's so, yeah, the soundtracks are just so deep, and multi-dimensional in that way. It's like something very different than a lot of games around that time.
Yeah, and I mean, also with other like safe room themes, it's kind of weird, but I do prefer the Resident Evil 1's original version over the remake. I don't know why. I just do. But I also
I do
love
too, yeah.
I also like the Secure Place, which is Resident Evil 2's safe room, and Code Veronica's. Code Veronica made, I don't know, it just gave me like a 90s, like, I guess you could say pop feel. I don't know how to explain it. It just it made me easy, or feel easy. But I remember you saying, like one of the most underrated, themes from, or safe room themes, was the dead aim. And like right after your stream was over, I was like, I'm actually gonna check this out. And now I actually like the dead aim safe room theme.
Yeah, I mean yeah, the Dead Aim one is, it's just got that, like, I think what gives me chills just even now thinking about that theme is there's this whirring sound. It's like kind of playing there's like this whirring sound of like boom, boom,
Yeah,
boom, boom, and it's like, I don't know, it's so chilling for some reason. And yeah, I mean that's definitely a safe. I mean, some people don't like it, but it really is one of my favorites too. So
yeah. And in my opinion, like Akira Yamaoka, he is probably one of the best composers. He's probably one of my favorite composers for video games, other than Mick Gordon, which, if you guys don't know, Mick Gordon makes the music for Killer Instinct remake, or well, reboot, whatever, Killer Instinct 3, the new Doom 4, and Wolfenstein. So I love me Mick Gordon, but Akira Yamaoka, I loved, like I said, I loved the Silent Hill 2 soundtrack, and he did an amazing job at just creating the atmosphere for Silent Hill 2.
Mhm.
But let's see, what else do we have here? The top, or sorry, another. Now, that's basically all I have for or not influences, sorry, impacts survival horror brought.
Mhm.
But another topic is the different horrors that survival horror tackled, which is basically, I see there's zombies, dinosaurs, ghosts, and just other stuff, which Resident Evil tackled mainly on zombies and BOWs.
Mhm.
and Silent Hill, Fatal Frame, and Clock Tower focused on the paranormal. And Dino Crisis, of course, focused on dinosaurs. I don't know if there was any other monsters or other monster stuff that
Yeah, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think. I mean, I feel like there's got to be for everything, yeah. But I mean, yeah, there a lot of paranormal stuff has been covered for sure. And just off the top, I'm not going to go on and on about this, but just going back to one thing that you said that just reminded me about Silent Hill. Like you were saying, you might have been too young or something to get like understand the character, like James Sunderland or any of the Silent Hill. And I had a similar experience with it was I think 2001 was Silent Hill 2 came out. It was somewhere around there. And I just heard Silent Hill 2, that's a really anticipated game. So I got it that year it came out. And I played it, I finished it, and I did not understand it. I was like, I don't understand. I'm like, are the craters in the town real? Is this a real? Like, I was too stuck in like reality to understand the whole paranormal stuff. But it wasn't until probably about 6 years later, 5, 6 years later, I revisited Silent Hill, understood it. I think it was when I was like 18, 19 years old. And then I was like, oh, I totally understand it now. And then I played them all and, I got hooked at that point. But yeah, I can definitely see that was that's really my only other experience with a lot of survival horror. Some people don't really consider Silent Hill survival. I don't know. Horror, it's more, the paranormal, but it's, I think it all is the same category, to be honest. But yeah, like Dino Crisis is another example. Like I wasn't really into dinosaurs, so I did play the first one, but I didn't continue on with. I was so in love with RE and stuff that. But yeah, I'm trying to think of other things that survival horror has tackled. I mean, it's
like there. I mean, Parasite Eve, I've heard, is a survival horror. And when I looked at game footage of it, it just looked, I don't know, it kind of looked like Final Fantasy in a way.
Okay, yeah.
Like,
so the only thing I can say about Parasite Eve was by the time I played Parasite Eve, I had already played Resident Evil, and you can't really go back. Once you play like something as great as Resident Evil or Silent Hill, it's so hard to like go back to certain games because the problem I had with Parasite Eve, from what I can remember, was just the controls. It had more blurry kind of graphics, as cleaned up as RE or anything. So that's not saying it's a bad game at all. It's just when I was a kid, and I didn't have the money to try everything out every week like I did RE. It's like I had to pick and choose, what I was going to either my parents were going to spend money on or I was going to spend money on. So I think it's a lot of these things I want to revisit for sure.
Yeah, and that's what I'm going to be doing as well. I'm actually going to be playing like a whole bunch of these games. Like Parasite Eve is going to definitely be one of them. I'm going to play Dino Crisis 2 again. I just remember playing it and then just hating it for some reason.
Oh.
I don't know. I remember loving the first one, and I was like, and I think the reason why I hated it or hated Dino Crisis 2 was because it was too arcadey. I think because didn't they have the combo system? Was it something like that? Like if you killed this many dinosaurs, it gave you points or something. I'm not sure. I haven't played Dino Crisis in like 10 years. But I just remember loving Dino Crisis 1 and then just absolutely hating Dino Crisis 2. But I am going to play Fatal Frame one of these days. Clock Tower. I'm gonna try to find the emulator which that's on. I basically have almost all the emulators, PlayStation 1 through portable. I have the NES through Wii. the just any the Genesis and the Dreamcast. I'm trying to get all the emulators together, but I really can't think of any more horrors that is tackled.
Yeah, that was the thing. Like, just to finish off what I was kind of like, it's one of those things where I don't know. Resident Evil and Silent Hill were just, to me, like, the best. So
Yeah,
it was so hard to
yeah.
figure out which ones, to try next. But
Yeah, so basically the next topic is what changed survival horror over the course of the years. Um, in my honest opinion, I kind of stopped playing Resident Evil after Resident Evil 4. I really did not like, even though I liked Resident Evil 4. I mean, I I liked Resident Evil 4, but it was really different for me. I'm definitely was not used to the over the shoulder and and then all this action stuff, and I was like, yeah, I mean I beat the game. I have beaten the game before, but I mean I did not really enjoy it as a kid as much as I did like the original trilogy, because I kind of figured with that it was going to shift into something more action oriented, and then when Resident Evil 5 came out, I looked at the gameplay. I'm like, oh shit, this is bad. So I was like, oh great. So I mean I've played Resident Evil 5. I kind of had to, because my brother won the game so much. So my mom and when my mom and dad came, sorry, when my mom bought Resident Evil 5 for my little brother for the PS3, and I mean we've beaten that game in like one night. I mean it was it was I'm not saying like it's a great co-op game, but it was like a horrible ass Resident Evil game.
yeah, so I know your next topic is like what killed the kind of survival horror genre. So I might blend what I'm about to say into that, but
it's fine.
I think, I mean, you could have a podcast devoted to this thing. So I'll have to try to sum up like the big points, I guess. What I think is that I'll say I've heard. I haven't really verified this myself. It's so hard to figure out like the sales numbers for games. It's, for some reason, there's not like a really good, I can't find a good source for that, but I've heard that it's risky. It's really risky for these game companies, developers, to create new IPs.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Yeah, so I kind of understand that. So basically, in the sense, like with Resident Evil's change into action, I think that there was a lot of probably a lot of apprehensions of creating a new IP, and looking out in the gaming industry. Survival horror, I guess, it is seen as a niche market, because there's certainly a market for survival horror, but there's a bigger market for these action games. I was trying to look up yesterday about like game sales, so it's very shoddy, but it does seem like games like Halo and Call of Duty and just these I mean, one's a first person shooter and a third person, but they seem to sell in the double digits, like with millions of sales. Are always in the single digits. The largest selling Resident Evil was Resident Evil 5.
Yeah.
And yeah, but right, that's the thing. It's like, even though you sold more, what happened to the brand was that it lost its identity, which was survival horror. So, and then another point is there's a lot of debate. It seems like still bad turning point for Resident Evil. Was it Resident Evil 4? Was it 5? Some even say Code Veronica. Was it Resident Evil 0? So here's the thing, and I've heard others speak about it, and I don't want to plug someone else doing this who's talked about this in another video offhand. He actually stopped making videos like 2 years ago, but he made a really great point that Resident Evil specifically is that for some reason Capcom made a deal with Nintendo to have Resident Evil be exclusive to the Nintendo GameCube. So
Yeah, and that's why the remake didn't get that much sales, was because it couldn't be ported to like the PS2, the Xbox, and
no, right. I mean, it's when you really think about it, Resident Evil remake, and they got ported to the Wii later on, like in 2007. So I'm not even going to count that. So Resident Evil remake and 0 didn't get truly ported until their remasters in 2015 and 2016. When you think about how crazy that is, that all those years that this game never got ported to PlayStation, I mean, of course that affected sales. And you're just going, how did and that influenced Shinji Mikami's change of Resident Evil 4 into what it became. And then what happened was Resident Evil 4, I personally still think it's a survival horror, less survival. I still think it's more. I think Resident Evil 4 still got a big horror element to it.
yeah.
But it did become more linear of a game for sure. There was rarely any backtracking, and it became a much more linear game. But that's what the mainstream seems to enjoy. They enjoy these like simplified games like that. Like they may not like backtracking. I personally love backtracking in a game. I love how Resident Evil 7 implemented that again. But I guess there's a couple things. It's the fear of creating a new IP and having the pressure to have big sales all the time. So Resident Evil was seen as like, oh, we'll have to just make this more mainstream and more action based. And so there's a lot of things what happened with Resident Evil, but it really just makes me so upset when I realized that it was probably the exclusivity on GameCube. And I'll just finish off saying, like, I know a lot of other people wouldn't buy a system based on Resident Evil, but I bought Resident Evil, I bought I bought the GameCube because of the exclusivity. I bought a Wii because of Darkside Chronicles. Bought well, the Nintendo 3DS. A big influencer to buy that was Revelations on 1 on 3DS. So, like, Resident Evil's always been that motivator for me personally. But when you look at like the sales for Remake are like only 1 million or so, and it's got to be contributed to the being an exclusive, you know. So there's a lot, but those are the highlights that I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it, like how you said it was gonna cross over, because I mean, I think it's normal that it would, like, these two topics would cross over. So if you had any points of what killed the survival horror genre, just bring them in, because I mean, that basically what changed it, killed it basically. But in my eyes, I kind of knew that RE was kind of like screwed once I saw the over the shoulder, because I was like, oh no, this is not good. They changed the fixed cameras. They changed the what would you call it, tank controls, and and I was like, oh no, this is bad. And I played it, or I remember playing it when it first came out. Like, we bought, like, me and my my mom's boyfriend, we bought that game new the first day it came out. So I mean, it was like, I was really excited to play this. I was like, yay, I can't wait to play like a new gen Resident Evil game, because I got the PlayStation 2 when I was 7, I believe. Yeah, either 6 or 7. So I had the PlayStation 1 for about 4 years. And so I had the PlayStation 2 when I was 6 or 7. So yeah. But, on your point about the system seller, the only reason why I bought the Xbox One originally was because Killer Instinct 3 was on it. Because back then I used to play the Killer Instinct arcade.
Mhm.
So for me, Killer Instinct sold me onto the Xbox One, and now I've played like all these other games on it, and now it's one of my favorite consoles. But what changed in my eye, or in my eyes, what changed the survival horror is what you said, the backtrack, no backtracking in it, because that had a lot to do with survival horror, is a lot of backtracking. But also it became more action oriented and more Michael Bay stuff, like more explosions, more ammo, more health. You were supplied with everything, to get you through the whole game. While in like Resident Evil 1 or Trilogy, you had ink ribbons and you had limited ammo and health. And if you did not conserve that ink ribbon, you were screwed. Like my brother just blew through that his first time playing it. I've always conserved like the ink ribbons because I always knew I might needed them. He just blew through them. I was like, and I got to the game, or I finished the game faster than he did because I conserved it. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
That's
I just
another good point is autosaves. Is like now autosaves is an industry standard. Like there's pretty much, I don't know, there's no game that doesn't have autosave. So autosave, I wouldn't say it killed it because I think you can still have like limited autosave, kind of like how Madhouse mode in RE7 has very limited autosave, but there's still a save system. So I don't want to say like autosaves should be abolished completely, but I think that you should have an option to limit them, and because I would totally do that. I would not want a lot of autosaves, but there's particular times you kind of these days it's like hard not to. But yeah, you go from the old days with ink ribbons and not only finding a typewriter, but having the ink ribbons too. So
yeah, and I mean, just like, and what you said about the IP thing, Resident Evil 4 did spawn a new IP, which was Devil May Cry,
right,
because it was so action oriented. Before they scrapped that project, which turned into Devil May Cry, if you guys didn't know. Which Devil May Cry 2 is one of my favorite Capcom games of all time, other than Resident Evil, other than oh shit. I don't think I like any other or Capcom game than Resident Evil.
yeah,
It'll come to me.
Yeah,
It'll come to me once I start looking through my game list. But Devil May Cry 2 was like one of my favorite Devil May Cries, and I mean, because of Resident Evil 4 being action oriented, it did spawn the Devil May Cry series, which I am kind of happy about. But I I don't know. I think Resident Evil 4 really did change survival horror in a huge way. I'm not saying in like a very small way. I'm saying like hugely, because after that game, everything just started becoming more action oriented. Like I said, I haven't played Silent Hill since Silent Hill trilogy. Or well, I haven't played the Silent Hill trilogy since I was 6, so I didn't play all the new ones.
mm-hmm.
But I don't know if they went action oriented or not.
So my history, I know Silent Hill 4 came out before Resident Evil 4. I think it came out in 2004. So Silent Hill 4 was still horror and stuff like that. I mean, there was a lot of differences, but it really was Homecoming, which is the Silent Hill 5 Homecoming, and it was vastly different. I don't. It was action is probably the best word, but it definitely was much more about combat. It was very combat focused on Silent Hill 5, and it was like enemies had specific weaknesses that you could exploit, and you had to figure that out. But it was all about combat. It was less about the story. And I mean, there was still a story, and it could be compelling to someone, I guess. But there was the atmosphere wasn't as great. You could just graphics from the way it flowed. It came from American Team. It wasn't Team Silent, so it was like there was a definite. So yeah, I wouldn't say action with Silent Hill 5, but I mean, yeah, I mean it's action still. Yeah, it's combat. So yeah, I mean it did get more action.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. In my eyes, like what changed the survival horror was, you know, the Michael Bay setting kind of thing. With like Resident Evil 7, I've played at a friend's house. Or no, not Resident Evil 7, sorry. Resident Evil 6.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I can't, oh man, it's so hard saying Resident Evil 6 or 7 now. But you know, I played that at a friend's house, or he had a PS3. He's like, "Hey Brian, I know you like Resident Evil, so try this game out." And I was like, "All right." Play for 15 minutes. I put down the controller. I'm like, I'm not playing this anymore. Nah, I'm not doing it. He's like, why? I'm like, dude, that is trash. And you know, even though I say this, I know a lot of people are gonna not like me for this, but I actually did enjoy Operation Raccoon City. But I realized that, you know, like the reason why I'm so mad at Resident Evil 6 and 5 is because it's a main series game. It's like a numbered game. I knew Operation Raccoon City was a spin-off. It was just like Survivor. It was just like Dead Aim. It was just like Operation Raccoon, or no, not Operation Raccoon City, Outbreak. So I kind of figured like, hey, you know what? It's probably gonna be action oriented. You know, just a bunch of me and my friends played that game, and I actually did enjoy it. We played a lot of online together, and you know, Operation Raccoon City is actually one of my favorite Resident Evils, even though it is action oriented. But it is a spin-off. So I'm not as mad as you know.
Just to you're not that you're hitting a nerve or no, it's just like no, but I totally agree with you. Like I bought Operation Raccoon City, and it's for much as I'm very critical of the series on certain points, and but don't be mistaken, like I pretty much bought every Resident Evil, and with the exception of Survivor, Gaiden, and or Umbrella Corps. So those are the only 3 Resident Evils I've never bought.
I haven't. I heard bad news about Umbrella Corps. I'm like, yeah, I'll probably stay away from that now.
And see, and that's the thing. Like the old me used to be like, well, Umbrella Corps is a side game, and I'm not like, but the problem is that, and this is why I came back on YouTube and like, I'm very vocal now about the series, is because it seems like Capcom is not doing the same separation, like, oh, these are side games, you know, because it started to influence the main series.
Yeah.
You know? And that's when I woke up and I said, oh, maybe I shouldn't be praising Operation Raccoon City. I wasn't praising, I used to be just defensive about it. Like, I would say Raccoon City is flawed, it has glitches and shit, and you know, but it was fun. I remember playing that for months online with people, and I was on there, but I got to a point I was playing it like every day, and I just stopped. I just stopped cold turkey, and I was like, okay, I'm done. I've had enough. but I know what you mean. It's like for a side game, yeah. I mean, it's fun. It's a what if thing. It wasn't supposed to be canon, so you know. But it just started. You could see then Resident Evil 6, the reputation that because that came out before. It came out the same year, but I think it came out before. And then once I played Resident Evil 6, I was like, oh shit. Like I was like, oh no. they done fucked up on that one. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I get your point as well. Like, it might like the or Operation Raccoon City like probably had a huge influence on Resident Evil 6 development because they were coinciding with each other. And like I even though like a lot of people don't like Operation Raccoon City, I like it for what it is.
Yeah.
Even though like you said, it has a lot of glitches and stuff. Um, I still genuinely like it. I mean, I just learned about like the false advertising that they did for that game.
Oh yeah.
I did I
Oh.
didn't I didn't know about that. I did not know about that
Oh,
until like
you
recently. I was like,
oh my
oh
god.
oh god, that's why everybody hates the
Yeah.
game. I was like,
Yes. Yes.
oh.
It was the triple threat. It was the triple threat trailer. I was like, holy shit, this is the game. Oh my god. And then that cutscene isn't even. That's just an advertisement. It wasn't even in the game. You
Yeah,
know.
I was like, and I just and I like I said, I only learned about that a couple of months ago, and I was like, oh, that's why everybody hates Operation Raccoon City.
Uh.
But yeah, in all
Yeah.
honesty, I do like that game, and I just I knew it was a side game, but I do see your point that it probably had a lot of influence onto Resident Evil 6.
Yeah. I mean, they were.
Uh,
I mean, it's just. I think it. I mean, obviously, it started even before that because they came out in the same year. But it was this, and that's why I came on YouTube now because one of the things I'm trying to do, even though it's a very small channel, but I'm trying to just be like Capcom, listen to me, okay? Like I'm trying to steer the series back on track, and that's why there's a lot of pressure on what Resident Evil 7, but then RE2 remake. There's a lot of pressure,
Remake too.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean like wait, we still are on the topic of what killed the survival horror, right?
Yeah.
Shit. I think we are. But yeah, but because of that action oriented, in my eye, or another thing that killed the survival horror is the casual market.
Yeah.
Because everybody likes Call of Duty and all this arcade shooter stuff. And like I said, I played Resident Evil 6 at my friend's house, and then just like 15, 30 minutes, I let go of the controller. I said, I'm not playing this anymore. Because I was like, and he was like, why? I'm like, it's like I'm playing a game made by Michael Bay. I'm just not playing it anymore. And
I mean,
you know,
there's a few good points of RE6, but overall, there's more bad.
yeah,
More bad points.
I did kind of play the Leon. I actually kind of enjoyed it because it's I don't know, it gave me sort of like a horror feeling. I don't know if it's survival horror, but it gave me sort of a horror feeling to it.
Mhm.
Maybe like, but I don't know, like especially now with you know, Call of Duty and everything and which there would definitely be a podcast about that. Jesus fucking Christ, I have a lot of talk about World War II, but there's I believe the casual market, kind of killed it because people aren't into like all the backtracking and conserving everything. They just want to break down doors, kill everything you see, and then just like run out. And they aren't into like story driven games that like how we are, I guess you could say.
And you know what? That, not to cut you off, but that perfectly goes right to the next topic.
Wait.
Like with,
Oh yeah, it does actually. But yeah. And another thing that killed survival horror is that I saw this in my freshman sophomore year. I think it was sophomore year. I'm a senior now. But people are in favor of the jump scare horror games like FNAF and Amnesia. It I kind of stopped playing. Like when I stopped playing survival horror, which was Resident Evil 4, Um, I remember when did Amnesia come out? 2010.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely in
And
more recent years.
yeah, and when there was a whole bunch of videos on it, and and the first person I saw was PewDiePie, and I just remember watching it, and he would get overly dramatically scared over this thing. I'm like, this ain't even that scary. I mean, come on, man, it ain't that scary. Just and it made me hate those types of games a whole lot more because they make it like overly dramatic, like like they scream like into the mic and stuff. And another thing is, or Five Nights at Freddy's. Like I think it was sophomore year. It was either freshman or sophomore year that the first Five Nights at Freddy's came out, and I had this friend, and he was like, "Hey, dude, you should play this game." He had it on his phone. And I'm like, and I held the phone, and I was like, okay, okay, and and I was like bored because the game is based on jump scares. It's not based on true horror. It's just trying to make a quick buck out of just like popping up and just scaring, or well, quote unquote scaring you. And then they started making sequel after sequel. I was like, oh God, what is wrong with this?
Yeah, I felt the same way. It's like, as much as I find horror games kind of attractive in that way, like I like the idea of being scared, but also
Yeah,
overcoming your fears and stuff. Whereas I remember seeing like Slender Man like pop up and in the
yeah,
gaming world, and I just didn't think it was deep enough, for what I'm used to between RE and Silent Hill. It's like, so you're walking around,
yeah,
this guy sneaks up on you, and I don't know, it just wasn't in depth for me personally. I can see why some like it, but yeah, it definitely catered more to people that aren't going to sit down for hours. They're just going to sit down for like 30 minutes and do a reaction video, and then that's pretty much well,
yeah,
it seemed to be.
and I guess it's like I guess you could call them the mainstream YouTubers that made me hate like even though I love survival horror and everything, and I love horror games and all that, it made me hate like the idea of like the game because I always figured that they're just gonna be jump scare games. Until I see actual gameplay, I assume this is just gonna be jump scares, just like the horror movie industry. Like with Paranormal Activity, I was not scared of that whatsoever because to me, I don't know, Paranormal Activity just had no originality to me. I was kind
Yeah.
of like one of my favorite scary movies is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and it's because I have a deep, and I mean a deep fear of chainsaws. I absolutely hate chainsaws. I hate the sounds of them, and I hate the sights of them. So it's like, yeah, no, no, yeah. And then I just it was one of my favorite movies. And then all these ghost movies came up, and then just like all these jump scares and stuff. And I just started, just hated the horror movies as well. It's like I think the only horror movie that I've liked in recent time was Your Next, and it's like a home invasion movie. If you have not seen it, please watch it. It's like the first, I don't know, the first hour is actually kind of not that, it's kind of cheesy, but the ending, oh man, the ending's really rewarding. Once you finish it.
Yeah, horror movies for me, it's like, well, these days I can get more into them. I bet for whatever reason, the majority of like my teen years and my 20s, like I just could not get into a horror movie. I couldn't find a lot of uh I don't know. I just couldn't get into them. It takes a really talented writer, director team, to really, I think, horror is probably the hardest genre for me personally to get into, because if you don't do it right, it just comes off. It's kind of
Yeah,
boring. You can't get into it, and um, so it's always been a hard genre for me to
yeah,
to
and I
get
mean,
into like that.
I don't know. I got into Resident Evil because of Apocalypse. And even the first movie that I've ever watched that made me, deeply in love with zombies, that made me want to go see Apocalypse, was because the first movie I've ever remember watching was Night of the Living Dead, the 1990s remake. My
No
dad had
way! Oh my
Yeah,
god! Oh
my
my
dad had it
god!
on DVD, and I remember watching it, and I was just terrified, especially on the fat zombies up the stairs. And when he starts crashing down, I'm like, holy shit. I mean, I was like 2 years old and I was like freaking out and
Oh my
everything.
god!
And
So wait,
I
how old were you when you saw that?
I was 2 years old.
Damn.
Um, yeah, and I think the second horror movie I've watched, I was indoctrinated to horror when I was young because
Yeah.
my father, he's a huge horror fanatic. He has almost all the Friday 13th, Texas Chainsaws, Nightmare on Elm Street, and this, and also Child's Play. That was the second horror movie that I've watched, and that was around the same time as well. So yeah,
But I have to say, what is so funny that you brought up that remake of Night of the Living Dead is that was I have a connection with that. I was about like 9 years old, and I didn't really know about zombies, and I was over like a sleepover kind of party thing, and everyone was like, it was really late at night, and we were all watching it, and I was like hiding behind the couch because I was like, oh my god, this is so scary. And then and so you can think like I watched that like a year before, or maybe it was the same year, but it was before I played Resident Evil, and that was what was so fucking scary. When I got to that first zombie, I was like, oh my god, this is the thing I've been like so afraid of. Like I was so scared of zombies back then because of Night of the Living Dead remake. And um yeah, that had a heavy influence too of my fear of zombies because of that movie. So it's just funny that you brought that
yeah,
up because
yeah, and I guess that's one of the personal experiences too, because because of Night of the Living Dead, I guess I got really big into zombies. And then, like I said, because I watched that movie, I really wanted to see the Resident Evil movie or Apocalypse movie. I didn't watch the first one, but I was like, huh, this movie looks cool. I'm actually gonna watch it. And I really did enjoy it though, and then that's what got me into the Resident Evil series. Like, yeah, I want to play. Or when I heard it was a game, I was like, can I have the game? So, yeah. So I mean, even though like I'm not a big fan of horror games and movies now, that like I'm still like, you know, they made me love this type of stuff, and that's why I'm like so hard on it, I guess you can say. Like I'm not really like proud of what it is today, because with all the
yeah,
technology, you could do a whole lot, especially with survival horror. With today's technology, you can make realistic atmospheres and everything, which we'll get on. Actually, uh, two topics over, but yeah, let's get into the modern take on the genre, which in my eyes is basically 2008 through 2000 or to now. So what do you think about like the modern survival horror? What do you think it is?
yeah. Something when we started the podcast, it was something I was thinking about was I hear from time to time, there are survival horror games, but they are far and few between. and it's very hard to figure out. So I'll just stick to some prominent, like a prominent one I'm thinking of right now is The Evil Within. So that's more recent. That came out a couple years ago. But there's something to be said is that went real quiet, probably until The Evil Within. I feel like in between that time, we definitely had horror games. We had the indie horror games like Slenderman, like we were talking about, Amnesia,
Yeah.
those types of things, but they're not survival really. So,
Yeah.
but the Evil Within, I think, was definitely a product. Obviously, Shinji Mikami, I think he's the director of that game. So,
Yeah. He is the
that was a result. That was definitely a result of people. I think he was basically saying there's still a market for survival horror, and so nowadays, I'll just say this. At least based on what I see from Resident Evil 7 and maybe influence from all the other first-person games, is that these days there's a literal translation of what immersive gaming is. Like, Capcom people saying, we want the game to be immersive. I don't know what they're talking about. I think the old Resident Evil games were immersive.
Yeah.
Their old Resident Evil games were immersive in a more creative way, a less literal way. So, example, like they had highly detailed graphics. They actually showed, had death animations, to show, how gruesome these deaths could be. They had files. They had files scattered through the game that you slowly will learn about what's going on. So I feel like nowadays it's all literal translation of like, okay, immersive. So dumb down the personality of the character, like Ethan Winters in RE7, who you're playing as. He has like basically no personality. You don't know anything about him. And let's make it VR, so there's a lot more push in that direction, and not just first person, but it's like the character not having any personality. And I don't like that. I think that's not the best direction, but
yeah, and like as you say, immersive, and then when you went on to the details on everything in the files, that to me was immersive. Like I said, when I played Resident Evil 2 for the first time, like I said, I was Claire first, but when I played Leon's part, which is really weird because I played it in the opposite order, but that opposite order is actually the canonical order that you should play it in. But when I played as Leon, I was immersed as that cop. I wanted to get all these people, or I wanted to help the people out of here, like Ada Wong, Sherry Birkin, Claire Redfield. I wanted to help them out of the police station and out of the city. And reading the files, I had to have my mom's boyfriend read most of them because like I said, I was like 4, 5, 6. So there was a lot of stuff that I didn't understand, but he basically gave me like a general consensus of what is happening, especially the Resident Evil 1, when the closet zombie, when you find his diary.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, hey, what's happening, or what is he talking about? And he's like, he's turning into a zombie. He wants flesh and brains, basically. And I was like, and I understood. But as I grow older, I read, or it had been a couple years since I played Resident Evil 1. When I played it again and read that same diary, I was actually horrified because I realized what was actually going on. And I was like, oh, great. That just brought me chills down my spine. But it immersed me because, I was actually reading like I was that
Exactly.
And, I do have something on Resident Evil 7. I haven't completed it yet. But I'm at I'm at the part where you take the wooden sculpture and you make it into the eagle.
Okay.
That's the part I'm in. I put 2 of the Cerberus's heads on there, so I'm now looking for the third one. But what you think about the Resident Evil 7 protagonist? It's Ethan, isn't it?
Yeah.
See, I forgot the fucking name now. But the thing is that, like, when I was playing that, and this is not a spoiler or anything, because this literally happens like in the first 15 minutes of the game, when he got his hand chopped off, I was so out of the game, like I was like, oh wait, this is a game, shit. Because if that was me and I just got my hand cut off, I'd be freaking out. Like, no joke, I would
right.
be
He's just like
shit.
holding his arm. He's like, okay,
Yeah,
I'm
he's
just
like,
gonna walk over here.
okay, we're good. Yeah, like, okay, we're good. We're all good. And then when he, or is it Jack? Like, welcome to the family, son.
Yeah.
Is that Jack? Okay. When he cuts off your leg and you put it back on and you use that potion and it magically like gets back on there, and he's like, what the fuck? That's my same reaction. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? He just cut off your leg and then you just magically pour the stuff on there and it all reconnects.
So
like,
that's another definitely a topic that I would definitely want to explore more at some point. But I guess the gaming, I'll just say this in general, like the gaming industry it's gone back and forth a lot with games that are just completely unrealistic to making games as realistic as possible. Then it gets back to, okay, let's, just do outrageous stuff again, like just make it more of a game, So there's always like some games are more realistic than others. And so I don't, knowing like Resident Evil's history, like the act, but I know what you mean, like the personality of the character. It's like just so it's so weird how he's not freaking out. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but I'll just say, like, I just wish that.
Well, I've heard the ending from my friends because my friends are a bunch of douchebags. But I mean, yeah, I was like, oh yay, thanks guys, you guys are awesome. I also played the first 15 minutes, and you guys just tell me everything.
That's also like another topic of like,
yeah,
going back just for a second on like what killed survival horror games, or what kills these story-driven games, is the internet in general. Because I'll tell you, when Resident Evil 7 came out, I had a lot of pressure to get that done like in a day or two.
Yeah.
Whereas usually I would like to milk the game out for a few more days, or at least a week or something. But I had to stay off, Facebook and YouTube, all these, Twitter. I had to stay off all that shit because, I was potentially getting spoiled and stuff. So that ruins it too. To pace yourself, and like I'm someone too, like that doesn't like to binge watch on Netflix. Actually, I'm like that minority, that like I don't like binge, watching things, because I like to let a few days, like, my mind wander a little bit about it. It's like something cool to think about. But these days, it's like people just are gonna ruin it, and this is what happens.
I mean, that's the same that happened with Injustice 2. Like before the game even came out, they got the ending. I'm like, yep, nope, staying off of YouTube. Nope, that's staying off of YouTube. And Harley in the chat knows this. Within the first night that I had it, I pulled an all-nighter and beat that game. And I beat the game at least 3 times over. By the time, let's see, it was already, I think it came out on a Thursday. It was either a Tuesday or a Thursday, but I got done with it 3 times in the span of 2 days because I did not want the ending spoiled at all. But the only thing I
And-
heard was that there was 2 endings. That's the only thing I heard. I'm like, uh-oh, nope, nope. Off of YouTube, off of everything.
And not
So I
to,
was
but
like,
you know what? Bringing up another point too is games that are going episodic, and people don't. A lot of people don't like that, but actually, one of the big benefits of things being episodic is it forces people to not spoil. It forces people to slow the hell down, and so there is a plus side to episodic in a way. Although I will say, it does suck like that they are controlling like when you play the game and when you're not playing the game. But at the same time, in a way, like I'm kind of pro way in a slight way. I don't know. I'd have to really think about that more. I'm just bringing up that point for people to marinate and think about. But
yeah,
it's another thing.
and I get what you're saying, and I don't know if this is true, but wasn't Revelations 2 a episodic game? I'm
Yes.
not sure. Okay, I was because I'm thinking about buying that on the Vita and everything. Once I get enough money, that's one of the games that I'm buying.
It's a solid game.
Yeah, I heard so much great things about Revelations 1 and 2, and then I'm gonna try to get it on the Vita so I can have it on the go. But I mean, yeah, like you said, like what the internet basically kills a lot of things because when I was younger, the internet was like starting to be was actually going to be a trending thing. Like 2004 and 2003 was when I was playing Resident Evil, and the internet was just starting out. But I kind of had to like find all the shit out basically, and now it's like you can just Google search whatever you need, and then it's right there for you. And it's like, wow, that just kills the fun out of everything. You don't feel like you've accomplished anything because you just Google searched it up. I mean, I don't know. I just, yeah, I do agree with you with the internet basically sort of contributing to the death of survival horror. But with one of the most recent games that I could think of was Dead Space, which I'll also get into Dead Space because I have another point of that. But I believe I was 8 when that came out, and I was really excited for that game. And so when that game came out, I bought it. I bought it new, and I was actually really, really pleased from what I got because it kind of gave me a feeling of, hey, this is actually kind of survival horror, like backtracking and conserving health and ammo and everything. I mean, even though you do have your upgrades, it kind of gave me that feeling like, hey, this is actually kind of like Resident Evil in space. This actually feels nice. But yeah, have you played Dead Space at all?
I played the first one, and I think it's a good survival horror for sure. I'm so picky with my genres that like the alien thing with how that was done, I think it was interesting. It is scary, but at the same time, it's like, damn, once I played Resident Evil, it's so hard to like get into all the other stuff. I don't know. It's just, yeah, but I think I can see why people love that series, and especially the first one, so it's definitely, I want to revisit that for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, I know once this gets onto the like when this actually gets published or this podcast gets published and everything, everybody will remember this because this was such a huge thing a couple years ago. Here, actually, how many years ago was that? But this was the reason why I wanted to buy a PS4. This was the sole reason why I wanted to buy a PS4. and it is because of Silent Hills.
Mm-hmm.
When that teaser dropped, I shit my pants. I played it at a friend's house, and even though it's kind of like a walking simulator, I was genuinely afraid. I was like, oh god, here we go, and and then looking into the sink and seeing that fetus in there, I was like, dude, it really messed up with my mind and everything, and when I was over at my friend's house, he has like these really, really, really good headphones, and he put them on my head, and and you can like hear everything, like every crack and every like everything, and I was just so afraid that of Silent Hills, but what was your thought on Silent Hills when it was actually a thing?
Of course, it was an exclusive, and I didn't have PlayStation, so I never got my hands on it. But I watched a lot of videos on it, and I was like, yes, Silent Hill's back. This is what it's gonna be. And yeah, that's the end of that story. It was so upsetting that what Konami did, and they canceled it, and I don't want to go down that road because that'll just. But
I got
was
really
bad.
pissed.
Yeah, it was a bad situation. There's a lot of memes though, a lot of things go around like oh my god, I don't know if you've seen that. There was like a meme going around. I forgot, it was like a fake presentation thing of Konami, and it was just kind of like things that Konami is like deliberately trying to screw themselves, it's like
yeah, I've seen that. But, oh yeah, I do remember that, and there's this video that surfaced on the internet or on YouTube like about a year ago, and it's by what I have it, Ragnar Rocks, and
okay.
it's called the Kojima PT conspiracy. If you actually watch that video, it makes a whole lot of sense of why Kojima actually made the PT trailer. Because basically, in all retrospective, basically what he says that everything that happened in PT is metaphorically supposed to be him or Kojima leaving Konami.
Oh my god!
Like that. Okay. Like he says, Dad was such a drag, which the dad equals to Konami. Dad was such a drag. He eat the same kind of food, dressed the same, play the same kind of games. And then guess what? I will be coming back, and I'm bringing my new toys with me. And that part was supposed to mean that Kojima is going to PlayStation, and that he's making Death Stranding. Dude, after I watched that video, I was like, "Holy fucking Christ! I had never thought of that before." It's about 30 minutes long. I'll post it on the I'll put it in the description.
Okay.
But it's so weird to think of PT like that now. But just I remember playing PT, and then the trailer, and then the dad was such a drag, and then after that the trailer of like Norman Reedus just walking on the street, and then the lights be flickering and everything, and then he just turns back, and all you hear is like this rumbling through your headset. I'm like, okay, that's actually kind of cool. And then he just starts walking back, and I just remember I was so scared of that. And just
oh, keep going. Sorry.
Wait, no. You keep on going.
No, I was just gonna say and I was really looking forward to Allison Road, so that really was another thing that hit hard when that got canceled, because I guess I can't remember why it got canceled, but I just remember.
Oh no, it's actually back up.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, I remember I was supposed to I talked about it being canceled a long time ago, And then just like I believe a couple months later, it's not it. How do you say it's getting worked on again?
Okay.
So it's like, but yeah, it says TBA right now. But last update was November 2016. Oh shit.
Oh, okay. So the thing that, because people are gonna probably think I'm a hypocrite or something because of, oh, those are first person games, those are,
Yeah.
but the thing that really stuck out to me about between Allison Road and uh Silent Hills, the little teaser thing, um is that it's set in a very realistic home environment. Like when you are going down those halls, it's like, oh, this is like a modern home, in a modern place.
Yeah.
Whereas um like the first part with Resident Evil 7, the it's not as relatable. Like to me, when it's scarier to be in a place of familiarity rather than an abandoned kind of house looking, because for some reason it makes me scared of my own home, like when it visually looks like my own home, and it's very realistic looking, and that's what really appealed to me about PT and Alice Road was that it wasn't doing a lot of over the abandoned, decrepit looking, dark looking. It actually, and it kind of even goes back to what is so fascinating about the original Resident Evil 1 is how bright that was, and the contrast of like how bright it is and colorful it is, but you've got all these monsters, so it's kind of, it's that contrast that's really interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean, I yeah, like when I saw Allison Road, like the demo, I guess you could say of like the VR. I actually wanted to get a VR to play that game because it looked like something that I could get into, like something immersive, something that would truly scare me. That's not jump scare and just everything else. I I mean, wait a minute, hold up. Yeah, that is the next topic, which is the new breed of survival horror. But yeah, Silent Hills after that got canceled. I was so bummed out, and then I heard about the project of Allison Road coming. I'm like, okay, that actually looks pretty awesome. And then after I seen it, I'm like, holy shit, this is actually a spiritual successor to PT, because everybody was hoping that Kojima would work on like another horror, but we got Death Stranding. So that now that they're making Allison Road, that gives me hope that PT kind of will still live on. But another thing that I just thought of for this topic, which is the modern take on the genre. Do you think that Call of Duty World War II Zombies will have a survival horror aspect? Because the guys that are working on Zombies worked on Dead Space, and they said that it's going to have a Dead Space-esque feel.
I'm not too familiar with that part of it. But what I can say is, I mean, at least, so you're saying it has a Dead Space. You're saying,
that's apparently what they said. They said that they're going to give their Dead Space like feeling to it.
I wonder what that means. But I was just thinking about Daymare.
I saw the chat.
Yeah, because the over the shoulder kind of thing that RE4 did, and going back to what we said a while ago, was I mean, for me personally, I didn't mind the over the shoulder, and the only thing I want to say about that is that I think the over the shoulder, when it's really close up to the and not like way behind them, if you look at the evolution of what they did with the over the shoulder, it got changed a little bit. But with our RE4, there definitely was that tension of like, I don't know how close the enemies are to me, or if there is someone behind me. So there definitely is a tension there, but especially I could speak on Daymare, is that it's still too soon for the over. I think we need to get away from the over the shoulder for a time being, until it's, because again, that's why with horror games you really have to switch up the camera perspective. You got to change to keep people on edge, and that's maybe part of why, like, Evil Within, I didn't really gravitate to that. And another reason why, I mean, I'm looking forward to Daymare, for example, but I'm not like as psyched as, let's say, RE2 Remake or something like that. But yeah, I don't know too much about you say Call of Duty, but I know there's been a thing in the last 10 years is like throwing Red Dead Redemption, I think had a zombie a DLC or something. Like there's been a lot of like, let's just throw zombies in this game, Metal Gear kind of
Survive, I know a lot of people, like a lot of my friends were not happy with that. Like because a lot of my friends are a fan of Metal Gear Solid and of Kojima's work. And when Kojima left, and then they heard that Metal Gear Survive was coming, they were like, "What the fuck are you doing, Konami?" Like, like they were generally pissed off about Survive. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Like everybody's getting into the whole zombie craze thing just because zombies. Which for the Resident Evil, or not Resident Evil, Red Dead, I called it the Red Undead Redemption. Just to make it short. But yeah, I do see it a whole lot more now because zombies is a whole new, or the new thing. Well, this still relevant to today's society, I guess you could say. But yeah, I don't know. I just had that thought because they're supposedly saying that Call of Duty Zombies or World War II Zombies is just going to be this this new experience, something you never experienced before, which I call bullshit on that or is it Sledgehammer, or I believe it's Sledgehammer that's working on it. Well, whoever worked on Advanced Warfare, but yeah, I was just thinking of that because they worked on Dead Space, so I would actually like Call of Duty World War II to have a survival horror aspect, where you kind of have to conserve your ammo. You can't just freely shoot everywhere, or you can do you can still have the Easter eggs, just don't have it that's the main story or anything. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd have to see more of it, but I always say proceed with caution with
especially with Call of Duty.
Yeah, Call of Duty. Yeah, I don't know.
I haven't bought Call of Duty new in a long time. I recently bought a PlayStation 4 Slim, and the only reason why I have Infinite Warfare is because that was the only thing that they had. My GameStop ran out of PlayStation 4s. My local Walmart ran out of PlayStation 4s. But this one place had a bunch of PlayStation 4s. And I was like, all right, this actually sounds awesome. The only thing they had was the Infinite Warfare bundle. I was like, oh, shit, great. But at least it came with the Modern Warfare remaster. But I'm not too happy with the supply drops in that. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Proceed with caution, especially with Call of Duty and stuff. But let's get to the next topic. The new breed of survival horror, as I call it, which is basically Allison's Road, Daymare 1998, Ad Infinitum, which is actually a game that not a lot of people have heard.
Yeah, I have it.
and all those other games. So Allison's Road, I'm actually really excited about. If even though I haven't heard a whole lot of news on it, actually, you know what? I'll look it up now.
Mm-hmm.
But even though I haven't heard a lot of news on it now, no, I'm genuinely excited about it being made. So Daymare, I only learned about it recently or actually like a year or two ago because is it Invader Games that's working on it?
Yeah. Well, they changed their name to Invader Studios, but yeah, it's pretty much
Okay. Yeah, and they wait a minute. That's the people that made the Resident Evil Reborn, isn't it?
yeah. There's some speculations on. Yeah, they were developing the Reborn, and then Capcom came in and you can't do that. It stopped the remake or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
fan remake. Yeah.
But I watched the Daymare 1998 gameplay, and I genuinely actually like it. I do like how it feels.
Yeah.
It looks like if Resident Evil 2 in shoulder view. That's the feeling
And
that it gives me.
the thing about
Which I'm hoping that it doesn't I'm hoping that Resident Evil 2 isn't over shoulder, but
yeah, it's got a lot of people nervous because I think it was just a PR thing that the Invader Studios got invited to Capcom a couple years ago,
yeah,
just to the headquarters. It created a lot of confusion. There were a lot of people that what I would see from time to time think that Invader Studios was involved with the remake. So that's never been public at all. So and I think they've denied. They've definitely denied. I've seen on Twitter recently they were like, no, we are not involved with the remake. But what I would say about Daymare is I don't know if you know this, but it does have a fixed camera angle option.
Oh, okay. That's
Yes.
wow. That's actually pretty amazing.
From the last time I looked at it, there's definitely on it, and I've seen them speak about it in an article recently that yeah, I think it's designed though for over the shoulder, so that's kind of the thing that people say about like RE2 remake is like you can probably do option of both, but at the end of the day, what is the
It's
game designed to do? It's going to be dumbed down to like a fixed camera angle. It's not going to be exactly the same, or um, you're going to get the real enjoyable experience with the over the shoulder. And so, it seems like Daymare is more of an over the shoulder, but they do have a fixed camera option, and I like it. I like that they found a way to do that, and it makes me wonder if that influence will go into the RE2 remake. Like maybe they will make an option, and realize like, oh, this is possible. We can do it this way. I'm really curious about. But as far as Daymare, it's like it's definitely a game that I'm gonna get.
yeah.
I personally, when they had the Kickstarter available, I wasn't sure about supporting it at that time because I like I said a couple minutes ago, it's like over the shoulder still is. We need to get away from over the shoulder. I personally think for a while. I don't really have a big problem with first person.
Yeah.
I know a lot. I don't know.
In my eyes, I really do. I like both fixed and first person, but first person, yeah, no, should not be in in Resident Evil 2 for
I
God's
agree.
sakes.
Yeah.
But the third game that I was talking about, Ad Infinitum, not a lot of people know about this game. I saw it on Facebook, around the time that E3 was going on, and it's like this it's like this or it's a World War III or not World War III. Here's the description for it. It's an atmospheric single player horror game which puts you in a World War One setting experienced in first person perspective. You find yourself in the trenches for a forlorn battlefield where a vicious creature lurk in the shadow. Solve challenging puzzles to clear pathways and avoid deadly traps to sneak or through the maze of trenches to hide from the manifested horrors of war. The surrealistic game world is based upon historical background information that is mixed with some fictional elements, which accumulates into a subtle yet intense story. So, from that description, that kind of sounds like survival horror. Challenging puzzles that clear pathways and stray away from deadly traps. I don't know.
Is there gameplay on it yet?
Yeah, it has an official game trailer.
Okay.
It's about 1:30. But when I saw it, it was absolutely amazing. Like the lighting of it, the rain drips on your eyes, like on the camera and everything. And it looks amazing. And the creature actually looks pretty creepy as well. Like I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, I just think like this new take on survival horror is actually going to be especially good, especially if they do VR right. I think survival horror would make an amazing comeback on VR. In my eyes,
I don't have really anything against VR. I know I played a demo of Resident Evil 7 last year in VR, and it was I do think VR still has a ways to go, but I do see a lot of promising things about it.
Yeah, and oh my god, I just actually, speaking about Resident Evil 7, I just thought about this. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling that, all right, do you remember Resident Evil 3.5? I'm not talking about the Devil May Cry one, but I'm talking what Resident Evil 4 was going to be before they scrapped that.
Yeah.
The paranormal thing. Do you think that, like, that, I don't know, the Resident Evil 7 kind of gave me that feeling.
Yeah, that is
paranormal.
Yeah, it's an interesting other thing because I also see what's funny is Resident Evil 2, but what, like if you do a Resident Evil 2 video, it's like everyone wants to know about that stuff. You'll get like thousands of views, But
yeah,
but Resident Evil 7, we should be talking. I don't want to say right now, like you and I, but like people should be talking about Resident Evil 7 and worried about, this kind of they're finding a way to make a paranormal game, but through biology, through holistic things, and people. I see a lot of people that go, "Oh, I really wish Resident Evil 4 was actually with the Hookman version," and I personally didn't like that, because if you see some of the trailers, they had like little dolls coming alive, I think, and you had to like throw grenades on the ground to like blow them up and stuff. And I mean, it's an interesting concept, but I don't know.
It should have been. It's an IP.
Exactly. I think, and I do agree. I think there's a market definitely to make a new IP, with something like that. But that's what I'm scared with, is that the same way that action games kind of snuck into Resident Evil and stuff, I'm a little scared that this paranormal thing is, they're going to try to put it in Resident Evil somehow, but maybe not. They might not, but that's the thing, is like, I want the fans and all of us to like be very vocal in saying like, okay, no, here's the line, Capcom. Here's the line. Do not cross it. So yeah, but I forgot what the original question or But
does the like I don't know why, but the Resident Evil 7 gave me like a Resident Evil 3.5 feeling.
yeah, especially I mean it does it towards the end and stuff, and um I felt the same way. Yeah, I definitely felt like Resident Evil has always kind of, if they put something in the beta, like a beta version of the game, um, it always finds its way in the game in a smaller way, or they use the idea in a later. Um, so there, I can't think of off the top of my head a lot of things, but that's one of those things. I think that they scrapped that idea for Resident Evil 4, but it found its way back into the series with 7.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, yeah, you got to watch out for those things, because when they're looking for ideas, they go back to their beta versions of things probably, and are like, oh, this is, um, yeah, something I look into, and so yeah.
But and speaking about like Resident Evil classics and stuff, that brings us into our new topics, which is basically all Resident Evil Remake 2 or Remake 2 stuff, which is the points of the topic is why should the Resident Evil 2 remake happen? You probably have a bunch of points for that one.
I had a bunch of points, but I want to make it simplified, and I think I have two major points. I think that Resident Evil 2 remake, has two major reasons why it should happen. I mean, because actually I have heard people say, why should RE2 get a remake? And to people that want to know, that is two things. I didn't write these ones down, so maybe it's like one thing because it's blending in my mind right now. But one is, I'm definitely a fan that came in pretty much at the beginning of the series, and when RE1 got a remake, trust me, like, there wasn't social media back then. It was a lot of forums and stuff, isolated,
Yeah.
forums all over the place, and I was a part of several forums, and it was a collective like, RE2 needs to get remade. And this is back in 2001 when it got announced that Remake was going to happen. And then once it finally came out and everyone loved Remake, they're like, they got to remake Resident Evil 2. So even though, it's been only 2 years since they announced it, we fans, that have been with it for this long, we wanted a remake way back then. And so I think in one aspect, it needs to happen because there's a lot of people like me who are, well, in their late 20s, their 30s, or even early 40s, who experienced Resident Evil 2 back then, who want to relive Resident Evil, but of course with some modern graphics and maybe a new, just like a new storyline or something, like how they did the RE1 remake. They added the Lisa Trevor line and gave more, there was more files and insight on George Trevor and the whole background of the mansion. And so people want something like that, where they're not changing a whole hell of a lot with RE2 because it is so great. And if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But
Yeah.
we want to be able to relive it. So we don't want it to be a carbon copy. But trust me, a little changes, it goes a long way. You don't want to change a lot. To do like a first person or a over the shoulder thing. Like, you want it to be, it's going to be a target audience. It are the fans like me who have been kind of exiting the Resident Evil series, because, and I'm kind of one of those people. Between 2013 and 2015, I was kind of like, I think RE is kind of done now. I was like, the way it's turning. So the target audience are people that they need to. There's a lot of people that they can get back into Resident Evil, and you know what? For me personally, just for the fact they announced they were going to remake it, got me back into it. I came on YouTube. I've been talking and promoting Resident Evil, and I made a channel. I'm talking about all the time. I bought Revelations 2. I bought the Origins collection with the remasters. I rebought Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6 when they got re-released. Like, just them announcing the RE2 remake went a huge way. It's like, think about it, if you actually do what those fans are saying to do, fixed angles and all this stuff. If you do it, we say we're gonna make the thing sell. Trust me. And the other thing though is the other reason why to have Resident Evil 2 remake is to basically preserve the game as it was. Because I think if they never remade the first game, people might not play Resident Evil. They wouldn't have, these days people don't go back to play Resident Evil 1. I'm saying like mainstream, a lot of people are getting the 2015 remaster. And that's exactly why Resident Evil 2 is just such a great game. It was one of those games back then that like everyone had. It's one of the top selling Resident Evils. I think it's the third. I think it's, or maybe it's the fourth. It might go. Yeah, it goes 5, 6, 4, and then 2. I think so. It's like it's up there as the.
I'll look that up right now.
Yeah. It was on the VG sales, I think, website.
Okay, there we go. Resident Evil.
So those numbers, the numbers might not be 100% accurate because I found some inconsistencies with that list. But in a general sense, I mean, RE2 was definitely one of those games that, and it has so much promise to sell. As long as they play up the retro vibe with the fixed angles, it's going to sell really well, I do believe. And it's going to preserve that game for another 15 years, just like the remake did. I mean, they made the RE1 remake in 2002 and re-released it in 2015, and it was like the most downloaded game.
Yeah.
It sold it pretty much. Basically, the remaster sold just as much, if not more, than it sold on GameCube in 2002. So if they remake Resident Evil 2, well, I mean, they do, but if they do it the right way and they don't screw people over and they don't change it too much, it's going to be another great game that is going to carry on into the next generation. There's those two major reasons why it has to be remade.
Yeah, like I see your points, and I mean, I was on the fence as well. My PlayStation Vita here, like I have it right over here. I think if I open it, I think I have Resident Evil 2 open as well. Yeah, okay. So oh, okay. So I just got out of the closet or space where you get the crank and the liquor is over there. But this game means a whole lot to me, because I did not like Resident Evil 5. I did not like 6. And, even though I sort of like Resident Evil 7, it kind of, I don't know. It's like a mix. Like 75% of me likes it, 25% doesn't. But, this, especially with this generation, like my generation, I would say, my generation isn't into this like survival horror stuff. My generation just wants to run, like I said earlier, run and gun, shoot everything, and just Michael Bay explosions. That's about it. But this game means a whole lot to me because when I played it on my Vita, I remember one time I was in health class and we had free time, and I was playing Resident Evil 2 on the Vita. And there was one kid that was behind me and he was like, "What is that crappy old game you were playing?" And dude, I dropped the Vita and I was like, "What did you say?" Dude, he was like, I was like, "What did you say?" And then he was like, and I was like, "I'll have you know this game is one of the best games I've ever played in my entire life. And you know, if this game gets remade, I think it'll make a lot of people like, you know, appreciate what Resident Evil 2 was, like how I do. Like to me, I didn't care about, you know, the graphics now and the voice acting now because, you know, voice acting is cheesy now, but I love it. And the graphics are not the best. But you know, if they remade this game, it would bring a whole new generation to Resident Evil and what it's supposed to be. You know, instead of like having this co-op and then whatever RE6 was, it didn't know what it wanted to be. But you know, it's I don't know. I just feel like it needs to happen because, you know, like you said on the forums thing, you know, fans way before like I was into Resident Evil, you know, like a couple like 2-3 years before I was into Resident Evil. You guys have been asking for like Resident Evil Remake 2 since, like I said, before I was into the series. And you know, it's coming up to 20 years and the game looks outdated. And you know, for the 20 years, you know, I would like to see a remake happen. You know, or I would like to hear some news on it.
Yeah.
But you know, I just and I mean also Resident Evil 2 is probably one of the best Resident Evils to date. Like, you know,
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it's been my favorite, and you know, my favorite, and you know, most Resident Evil players' favorites as well. So it's like this needs to be done, you know.
And
There's so much. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Well, it's just with the exception of what Daymare is doing, it's just interesting that still no one's going back to a fixed camera game.
Yeah.
There are some fan kind of games, but they're very limited. There's this Crossfire, I think it's called, a fan remake, or not a fan remake, a fan RE game, and I've only played a little bit of it because I don't think you can use a controller like I set up like you have to use the keyboard. Yeah, because it's a very simple game, but this person did a fan game in fixed camera angle, and I was like, this is great, you know, but could you imagine? I'm just like imagining if RE2 does do it this way, you know, it's going to. I think it's like
it's going to break it. In my opinion, it's going to break it.
Well, and I think you know, Capcom has a fear of angles because they don't think it will sell. And what I would tell them is that trust the true fans, like not true fans. I hate saying that, but like the diehard fans who of this RE2 remake, we are going to sell it for you. Trust me. We are going to stream it. We are going to tell everyone about it. We are going to praise it. It's just so interesting that this is even a worry and a debate because Resident Evil series has already gone the action route, and we know where that leads. It might give you a little bit more sales, but you're still not breaking the double digit in the millions. You're not getting 10 million sales. You're not getting 15 million sales. You're still getting single digit millions of sales, you know, 7, 8, you know, with the action. So that's not working out for you. And the big reason why is because Resident Evil has no identity. It's not sticking out, and that's the reason why it should just go back to horror, which it is with the first person. But as far as that's more cinematic horror, I would like to say, with the classic Resident Evils, this is their opportunity to do that. And I'm telling you, like, if they have a fear that they should not have a fear. RE2 is so hyped, even from people who've never played it, you know.
Yeah,
There are people that that because there's a hype behind it, people that don't know about it, they're going to want to do it. It's like how Final Fantasy VII is being remade. I've never played Final Fantasy, but honestly, I've heard so many good things about Final Fantasy VII that I probably Final Fantasy VII. I've never played a Final Fantasy game, but it's got this like praise, so much praise behind it. And I see the same thing for Resident Evil, is that people who've never played Resident Evil, they're going to buy RE2 no matter what. But it really, yeah, I mean, I could talk about it for days, but you know what I mean? Like,
and you know, like you're I mean, you're saying like they're afraid of having trouble with sales, but you have to, like, what Capcom has to understand is that, like, I'm looking at it right now. You know, back then in 1998, Resident Evil 2 sold 5.7 million copies, and you know, just think about what that is today. If that game probably came out today, think of how much copies they would sell, and especially with a game that looked amazing back then, and now if they remade it and made it amazing now, oh dude. And like you said, I mean, we are the kind of like the free promoters, you know. If Resident Evil 2 gets, or if they have any gameplay out, you know, I'm hyping that up, you know. Like Injustice, when they had the trailer, even though like a lot of people were pissed that Combat Pack 3 didn't happen, I was excited because, you know, Injustice 2 looked really promising, and when I heard that they're having a gear system, I just flipped. I was like, yep, I'm supporting them all the way. But you know, just I just feel like, you know, Capcom really needs to think about this, because if they which, I mean, that I guess this goes into the next topic of what should be done right in Remake 2.
Yeah.
But if they're really thinking about this, changing the camera angle, you know, like you said, it might get a couple more sales, but people won't stick around as long as they used to. Like, I mean, like us, we're still playing Resident Evil 2 to this day. Like, I'm still casually playing this to this day. You know, I play it on my PC, I play it on my PlayStation Vita, PS3, everything. And, you know, I just if they change the camera angle, I think it will really break the game, because, you know, they already have the foundation of it. You know, they already have all the camera angles and everything, so all they had to do is just redo it. But if they change it, they will have to replace everything. You know, because the herbs and ammo are placed for you to see with that fixed camera angle. And, you know, and the zombies, where they are placed, they're designed to be for fixed camera angles. If you change all of that, that will really break the game. You know, like that's what puts me on the fence of if I'm going to buy RE Remake.
Well, here's another point that people have brought up, which I've probably said it before, but with over the shoulder, for example, a lot of fears that people think over the shoulder, you would have to change the layout of the game, because it's too confined. It's the RPD and all the other areas, they are too confined to an over-the-shoulder view. I feel like that you're gonna have to make a wider hallways, and it's not gonna have that claustrophobic feel. And then some say, well, maybe it'll be first person. Yeah, but and that's the other thing. I think it's too big of a game for a first person, to be honest. There's so many arguments. Like, I've actually heard people like throw out like fixed cameras are dated, and there's no way in hell people are gonna want to play that. And like, we're still playing. I mean, a lot younger than me, so it's like in game. So I don't understand this idea that
Yeah,
it's a great game. It has
and
a
the
great characters, a great story, great just aesthetics, atmosphere, um, all these things. There's so many
music,
great things
yeah,
about it that
yeah. I mean, and to your point, look at look at remake one now. Now that Nintendo doesn't have any of the rights, it is booming right now. Or almost everybody has Resident Evil remake on their PS4.
I hear.
And
Yeah,
on their Xbox, and just like it's such a good game, and if Capcom doesn't see it now, I'm sorry, but they're just fucking idiots.
I'm in streams all the time, and so many people I hear all the time, oh, I just downloaded remaster, and remaster in Zero, even graphically speaking, because of the touch-ups, just the touch-ups they had to do for the remasters, they look like new games. They look like current games now, and that's what the beauty of the pre-rendered backgrounds and having it in that way. And I'll say this: I've never said this, but I do firmly believe this. I think pre-rendered backgrounds with fixed camera angles looks it just it has a timeless look to it. Looks so much more realistic than 3D environments. I'm just gonna say it. I know that technology has gotten to a point where 3D gaming has its realistic moments in it, but it has been said across the board, that 3D graphics get dated quicker. They get dated much
Yeah,
quicker than what you see in the remasters, for example. You look at those remasters, those graphics are beautiful, especially Zero. I mean, they put, I think, a lot more work into Zero and cleaning that up, from what I understand. And they did a great job with that because it looks so freaking good. Even though Zero is kind of one of my like lesser games that I go back to, but it's still that's it's like Capcom. You want people talking about RE2 and you want to be able to re-release this for years to come. Don't do it, with 3D environments like a first person. Just don't do it. And it's going to get dated really quick. And I said this probably in my last video about like fixed camera angles is a timeless thing, and it is. It's a timeless thing because it's like first person right now is a trend. I'm just gonna say in horror, it's a trend thing, and over the shoulder became, even though Resident Evil kind of pioneered it in a way, but then over the shoulder became a trend. So fixed camera angles is, to me, it's it's not, to me, it wasn't a trend back then. It was something that identified Resident Evil. It was something that was unique about it, and that is what was lacking in 5 and 6 thing. And it's not a bad unique thing. It's not sometimes unique can be used in a bad way, but
yeah,
yeah, it's just trust us. I don't know, at that point
yeah.
it's like,
Like, yeah, Capcom, dude. We're all gonna like promote this game no matter what. Like, if you just make it into like a fixed camera angle game, we are going to promote it till the end of it, or like till it's released. Like, and even after the release, we'll promote it. And I don't know. Like I said, it's a 20-year old game, or almost 20 years this coming January. But in my eyes, this game is a real gem to me. And even though, yeah, people say like, yeah, you can always go back to like classic Resident Evil, but I want Resident Evil remake because I want to see what it does graphically. And like even today, if you play Resident Evil remake on the GameCube, it still looks good to this day.
mhm.
I just I
And
I don't
um,
what
as soon as I was gonna bring up a point, but I was just thinking something. You keep going.
but yeah, I just don't know. I just wish Capcom would like just listen to their fans because like this is what we want. You know, this is something, you know, we've been wanting for ever since like ever after Resident Evil 1 came out or Remake 1 came out.
Mm-hmm.
So I just hope that they really do listen to their fans and you know like and I have a lot of points of what they should do right in Remake 2.
Okay.
You know, like one, the music. Music was a huge part for creating the atmosphere for Resident Evil 2. Um if like I know I give this guy a whole lot of credit and I mean a whole lot of it. But take inspiration from Crying Horn. Or even and hire him for God's sakes. Because that's what Remake 2's music should sound like. In this day of age, his front hall and secure place are beautiful masterpieces that, you know, make you know, when I first heard that, like the front hall on in his demo, um it put chills down my spine because I was genuinely afraid. And you know, when I was hearing the zombies behind the door, yeah, it felt like a new or next gen Resident Evil 2, you know, and that was just because of his music. And you know, I'll put a link into the channel or to his channel. But yeah, if you
Um,
guys haven't yet, listen to it.
and there's
What were you
something
gonna say?
there's something that I know about that like no one knows about with Crying Horn. I'm pretty sure um he has more than just the main hall that he was working on, or maybe he put the other stuff aside. But um, about a year ago or so, I was monitoring the Remake Resident Evil 2 fan page, and some anonymous person sent in, because it got reposted by that page, sent in pictures of like modeler kind of, it was like all gray, but like all the outlines of like the objects in the room were made, and there was there was actually 3D modeling this person had done of the STARS office,
Ooh.
and I don't know if it was him, but there was something I saw recently what made me think like, oh, maybe those were from him, because at the time posted that they were like, is this a leak? Is this a leak from the Remake 2? But then I started going, oh, I started seeing on Crying Horn's page the similar 3D modeler stuff, and it was of the STARS office. So I'm gonna try this. I don't know. I'm gonna see if I can
Yeah, but
get
I'm
something.
looking that up because like that that sounds awesome. Um but yeah, like when I was listening to his music, I was like, wow, this is like I'm not I don't want to say that I'm not a big fan of the remake one's music, but you know, I prefer the original game's music more than, you know, the remakes version. I don't know why, I just do. But when I was listening to Crying Horn, it was like I felt that same experience that I did like 14 no. It would have to be 13 years ago, I believe. Like that same feeling of like being scared of like the front hall, like um and also just the secure place. Like if you guys haven't heard them, I used it or I used both tracks as background music for my Where's Resident Evil 2 video. Here, wait a minute. I made it like right after E3. It was the day after E3. Yeah, 2 weeks ago. It's the Resident Evil remake not shown at E3 discussion hashtag Where's RE2 remake. But I mean, it's like I don't know. I just loved his music so much, and you know, it's music like that that they should put in the game because it, like I said, the one of the most memorable things of Resident Evil 2 is the music. It created the atmosphere of like, you know, this police station is not a safe place to be at, you know, and another point is the atmosphere needs to be on point to create the same horror and tension from 20 years ago. So I'm saying, like, you know, make the zombies kind of look, you know, realistic, and also the backgrounds, like, you know, uh there's little spots like where you know, they were like, they put in detail there because, you know, they cared about the game, you know, like the little like blood splats and everything, and all this random junk like the Burger Kong paper in there, or
Right.
the bag. You know, they put all those little details because they cared, you know, and you know, seeing, and if I see that, I see that they actually showed care for the game. You know, just the little things make the game like really really big. But yeah, that's basically what I see should be done right in Remake 2 is the music is especially should be on point, the atmosphere, and fixed camera angles. I don't know if you had anything that should be done right.
Pretty much every oh my I and I'll just end the topic on my end with the whole voice actor controversy thing right now.
Yeah, true.
And
I forgot about that.
and and there's a lot of people. I don't mean any offense by saying what I'm about to say, but if you are like so confused, I guess I don't know. If you're so confused, why would people want Alice in Court back? Then you might not be one of the people who originally wanted this remake, or 10 years ago wanted a remake, and because that was always one of the things that uh, people have always been saying is like Alice in Court has to be back because she had a voice so many times before, and she was different in that way because no one else had voiced Claire, and every other character has had changes to their voice actor, but there have been problems. There have been problems for me personally with some of the voice actor changes. I probably am in the minority to say this, but I had a problem with the voice actor for Wesker in the remake.
Yeah, okay, I see that. I actually do see that.
Because at that point we already had Richard Waugh was the one who I believe who voiced in, and then what was weird, he voiced in Code Veronica and he voiced in Zero, but he didn't voice in Remake. I don't know what happened with that. And the problem is there is a continuity issue with that. It's like, I understand it's not the same continuity issues you would have with the story, let's say, but there is still, it's so like jarring. It's so noticeable, and it takes you. I talk about like ruining immersion. Code Veronica for a couple years, and then you play remakes, totally different sounding Wesker, and you go at the end of that year, you play Zero, and we're back to the Code Veronica voice of Wesker, and it's this like, what the hell? Like, so I had a problem with that voice. Not it's and people got to also understand when I'm saying, the voice acting wasn't right for Wesker. I'm not saying the voice actor was bad. I'm just saying the cast, they casted someone who, and you know what, it wasn't that much of a problem, but it just was vastly different. And who else? I had a problem honestly with Revelations 1 Jill. That voice actor sounded nothing like I would, it sounded like a totally different Jill. And and also people downplay the importance of the voice actor when you're playing with, 3D animations of a character. You really rely on the voice to give that identity and personality. And Revelations 1 Jill was just like, that just didn't sound like, even if you go back even to the original Jill or remake Jill or Resident Evil 5 Jill, Resident Evil 3 Jill, there's a certain quality there. It's as though when they were casting, they had that stuff in mind, but for Revelations, maybe it was, not as big of a budget maybe for or whatever, that they just went with a certain voice actor instead. But it's so noticeable, and that's what worries me, is that when things are down to business decisions of, well, this person's non-union and they're maybe cheaper and we don't have to, give them whatever benefits or whatever. And when it's all business decisions, you're totally limiting of the voice actor. And so I am nervous, and
Yeah.
there's so much to that. And that's the first sign. It's the first sign that it was like, oh my God, like this isn't the worst situation, because we still don't know who the voice actor is going to be. But it's just a sign of like, all those things that we were asking are not being considered, perhaps, And she did says she got contacted, but in a podcast that she did last year, honestly, I think that was just PR stuff. They just contacted her. It didn't sound like they really
realize, like, yeah,
it didn't sound like they really wanted her. And then she just said recently in a podcast, that they've been trying to replace her actually for years as Claire.
Oh, man.
She said that. She's like, I
Damn.
totally understand from a business perspective, but it's so messed up when you hear like, wow, they've been actively trying to replace Allison Court when the fans liked her that way.
Who was that? That happened somewhere else. I forget what game it was, but they were trying to replace like a voice actor that's been there for years. It had to do with the Capcom game, but it wasn't Allison Court. No. It was Konami.
Metal Gear?
Yeah, it was Metal Gear. I think it was the voice of Solid Snake, I believe they were trying to voice. Or they gave like an actual actor like a voice. Like the new voice, but even though the old voice actor that wanted to actually voice Snake. I'm not sure. I thought I've heard something about it. And you know what? I've been looking up that thing you were talking about. Check your Discord and see if that's what you were talking about.
Oh.
But I just thought of this one point as well because of Resident Evil 7 and their press conference. The face models. I remember from the Resident Evil Residents of Evil podcast when they were talking about like Chris's evolution. Like how he has changed so much. After I look back on it, god damn, man, he has changed. Like his face changes every game.
Oh yeah, I remember. I heard that podcast. Yeah, and it's so weird. Like they can't get it right. Like why is it always changing that much? Like it's like it shouldn't be that hard, And
I've seen Chris in Resident Evil 7, and I don't know. If they're gonna do that, I really hope they don't. I really hope they do not screw up Leon and Claire because those are probably my favorite characters out of the whole franchise. And if they just look weird, it will totally kill everything.
And I'll just say this because I know a lot of different. I'll just say a lot of types of fans. There's some fans that are more worried about maybe the story or the fixed camera angle. I'm worried about all of it, you know, and I do think, you know, you change the voice actor, and then if they change the character model too much, and then they change this too much, they change that too much, it stops being a remake and starts becoming a reimagining. Like
Yeah.
we're like all bets are off, and almost like a reboot, like it starts going into that direction more. There is a problem with that, and I'm not gonna. I do think that um what do I want to say? Like the story is important. I obviously think the fixed camera is important, but it's really all important. Everything to varying degrees. It's so important. And as I alluded to in my last video, which is like, give me enough reasons to not get the game. I really might not, because if so much has changed, like why the hell am I playing it at that point?
Yeah.
The point as an older fan is so I can relive it, but and that actually this was the point I forgot what I was going to mention before, which is people that say, well, just play the original RE2, like if you want to relive it. It's not the same. It's
Yeah.
we've played that game so many times. When you just alter a few things and update the graphics, like you can relive it. I don't know how to explain it, but just the same way I was able to relive with the remake, where I feel comfortable it's the same game, but it still gives me surprises, and I learn more about the story and characters, and a little goes a long way. Don't go crazy, yeah, with the changes. So I am really worried about also the character models. Um, if you change the voice, you change enough. Like people had a big problem with Chris Redfield and you know the changes there. So it's just RE2 is even going to be worse when people it's just, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be like in hiding because I can't deal with the voice actors don't matter. Oh, they do matter. You know, this
Yeah.
whole back and forth. It's like it's gonna happen. I'm just warning people. They change anything drastically, there's gonna be hell to pay.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. It's just I like I said, it's Leon and Claire are one of my favorite characters, and and so is Jill. But they've changed Jill a whole bunch from the first, like from like I think it was Operation Raccoon City that was probably my
Oh,
least favorite Jill. Here, wait a minute. Let me see it.
I have it
Um
pictured in my head.
uh, yeah, with her big lips and everything. It's like
It's like they took the Revelations 1 model. It's like
yeah, and
um
they
and I just, it's almost like they put in a computer algorithm like beautiful woman, okay, and they make everything so symmetrical. Okay, give her some bigger lips, give her this, and at this she just looks like a computer generated like just she has no her look she, no I mean no offense to people who have like plastic surgery or anything, but she kind of looks like that. She kind of looks like
yeah,
someone had
and
plastic surgery,
yeah, and
like
I feel the same
overdone.
way. It's like ugh. But I did like the model of Claire Redfield and Leon in Operation Raccoon City. Jill was the only one I actually really had a
Yeah,
problem with, was because of the big lips. I did not like that whatsoever.
and
But
it does, and it breaks the immersion, as we've been saying, and if read about immersion, it does work. It ruin the continuity, the immersion, uh, and it's not like as breaking as like a story change or something, but it is still significant. I would not downplay that. A lot of people buy these games too, also more on a casual end, and if they see something that doesn't resemble the original content, the original characters, why would they buy it? Like why would they care at that
yeah.
point? So I'm really worried changes they think are small. They're gonna, I don't know, it's too much. So
Okay, so we have two topics left, which this topic we've actually talked about in I thought of this topic today, but we've kind of discussed this in a live stream, I believe, is what should be added into Resident Evil 2. like special features and stuff like that. Like what they've done. Like I feel like what they've done in Resident Evil 1 remake, they should kind of do in Resident Evil 2.
Oh, you're saying
like storyline wise, like adding a
oh,
couple in, just a couple stuff that actually makes the story a whole lot better.
yeah,
And
I haven't put too much thought into it because I feel like we think up is going to be 10 times better than what Capcom will, and because I just have experience with like, especially with story stuff. Fans always think of really cool, interesting stories, and Capcom just kind of like does their own thing, and it's always something that's like not what I want. So, but
yeah,
yeah, I know what you mean. It's like they just if they add another storyline into it, like they did with the first remake, it goes a long way. Like a fresh game, but also the same game.
yeah, and like like I have definitely said this in your live stream. Like I feel that they should add in, like, after you beat the game, at least like how back then, like if you beat the game twice, you would get like this special costume or whatever. I feel if you beat the game twice, you should get a hunk story mode.
Mm-hmm.
Like the events before Resident Evil 2 starts, like you're down in the sewer, you're trying to go get Birkin, and then right and then you exit out with Hunk holding the briefcase and everything, and then we get to see what happens after Resident Evil 2, because Hunk is a character that hasn't been in Resident Evil a whole bunch, but he's such an amazing and interesting character to delve into, though.
Exactly, and because they were originally going to do a Hunk game for the third game. They were going. That was the original plan, I think. I think I saw in a Did You Know Gaming segment they did on Resident Evil that I think that was where I heard that.
Yeah,
Hunk was going to have his own game.
I think I heard that from there too. Yeah.
Yeah, and they I always thought that back then. I still remember like 20 years ago going, Hunk needs his own game, because it was always interesting that Ada Wong as well. It's like the mysterious characters we want to know about. There's such a want to play as them because we want to know more about them and what they're up. And yeah, this is a great opportunity to not only do a Hunk scenario, like a big full-fledged thing, not just a mini game like the Force Survivor and RE2.
Yeah, the mercenaries or whatever. Yeah,
but like an actual actual story mode, but also give Ada Wong one too. I think that's kind of expected. I think because that would totally make the game bigger too.
Mm-hmm. And I feel if you complete, like, here's how I see it: if you complete the Leon story twice, like if you complete, you can get the Ada Wong playthrough, and then if you beat Claire's A or B and A, wait, no, is that how it goes? Shit, I forgot the way that see. No, it's Claire's A and B, and then Leon's B and A. Yeah. But if you complete the story twice for each character, Leon would get Ada's story, Claire would get Hunk's story. Like I just think that would be like kind of like an amazing, something that they could add in.
Yeah, that's all.
For us fans.
Literally, like all they have to do. They don't actually have to create a crazy new storyline. Just like give us more of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And something that I thought of, like, for such a long time, when I was listening to the Did You Know Gaming, with the development and everything, I became engrossed for Resident Evil 1.5 and Elza, you know, I even though she's like Claire, I always found her to be like, you know, an amazing character that could have been fully fledged out in the new or in one of the new games. But they could I feel that they could make like a spin-off, either a spin-off game or a how do you say it? Or like something in Resident Evil 2 remake where it's a storyline with Elsa, just Elsa, and she's trying to survive the college setting because in my eyes, a college setting Resident Evil would be amazing. Like that could be something for Resident Evil Outbreak 3, which you know I've heard a lot of fans have been dying for ever
Yeah.
since two came out.
Yeah, I think
But
those are great ideas. You know, I'm definitely one of those people as well. That like, there's this like mystery about 1.5, mystery about the Elsa Walker character, and it's like Capcom might. I just get the sense that Capcom doesn't understand that type of stuff. Like they don't. They're like, I bet on Capcom's perspective, they're like, Elsa Walker is a prototype of Claire, you know, and just like they just.
yeah,
But there's still like for us on our end, it's like this lost character to me. That's what it feels like. It feels like this is an Ari character that got lost, and I want to know her story, even though she was basically just a prototype of Claire. But I perceive like she would have some different characteristics. Um, it seems like they emphasized the college student thing in Elsa Walker because Claire, they did say she was like a motorcycle Claire, but I don't feel like that was emphasized as Claire's character, that she was a college student, you know. So I feel like they
yeah,
would have different. I do perceive that you could have different qualities for both of these characters, and I would like that to be explored in some way. That would be interesting, and it would sell. Trust me, it would sell to
yeah.
put something
And
like that together.
I just think, you know, like Elsa would be an amazing person because I mean, yeah, they both are into bikes, but you know, Superman, Supergirl, you can make them into two totally different characters.
Right.
I mean, one is trying to look for her brother. That's what my thing was, and that's another thing is because that's a way that I connected to Claire because I love my little brother. And, and I like if something happened with him, I would search the world for him. So I connected with Claire in that regard. But Elsa could be something different. She could be like,
Yeah.
just a college student, just sort of like Leon, first day to college, and shit happens.
Yeah.
Or everybody's turned into zombies, all the professors, all the people or all the students. And I just feel like, I don't know why, but I feel like a college would be amazing setting for a for like for a for a Resident Evil game,
And what's
especially
interesting,
especially an Outbreak.
and what's in Break did have a scenario at Raccoon University. So it's really
Yeah,
interesting to play with that idea of of using that what they showed in Outbreak for Raccoon University and put Elza Walker into that situation, or you know what I mean? Like there's so many ideas,
yeah,
trust me, like RE fans, there's so many ideas that we can come up with, and it's like Capcom, please just listen to us and just because we do come up with these great ideas. You know? I don't know.
yeah,
I think
and
that'd be
like,
good.
and Resident Evil is it? I don't know if I heard this from the Did You Know Gaming, but I thought I heard that Resident Evil 1.5 was supposed to have like an RPG element with like armor and damage and stuff.
Something to that,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
Now see that'd be perfect for an Outbreak game, like because Outbreak kind of had like that RPG element kind of feel to it. So yeah, I'm thinking that it should be another Outbreak, the 1.5, and it should just be Elsa, like nobody else, like you know. And I don't know. I
Yeah,
just feel that
I don't see why not. I mean, there's so much lore and so much. You could keep going back to Raccoon City and stuff, and there's just so much you know,
Yeah, so
we
many stories that are kind of untold though.
yeah, there's I mean, yeah, we went back to Raccoon City. Well, we had 2 and 3 that took place in Raccoon City. Outbreak Files 1 and 2, and then the Chronicle games go back to it,
Yeah,
and Operation Raccoon City, obviously. So it's like there's just keep going back to it, and you can do it in
yeah,
those creative ways.
and you know, I've been hearing this like about or I know it's way too soon before this, but the Resident Evil 3 remake. There's people saying like that it might be pushed, or Resident Evil 2 might be pushed back because they might bundle Resident Evil 2 and 3 together. Because in a way, it kind of makes sense because Resident Evil 3 would take a whole lot shorter time to make because it's just a one person story. You and I don't know.
I think there's a pro and con to it being bundled with RE2 remake. Um, the I'll start with the negative. The negative is that um, I'm a little well, maybe it's all one point. Let me just say that I think RE3 deserves its own remake because RE3 had to be a bigger game. Yeah, it is. I think the shortest of all the Resident Evil games. It's only the one story. I think though there's a lot of opportunities to give Carlos his own story. There's places in Resident Evil 3 like City Hall. You just kind of you walk past City Hall. You don't even go inside there. You could go and be in that whole building for a whole period of time. You could be Jill in the RPD for a little longer. There's so many opportunities to make RE3 a bigger game. And Nemesis has such an appeal. If they're worried about sales of RE3 remake, Nemesis is like you started the podcast saying like Nemesis is
Yeah,
still like an iconic uh uh enemy, in within this series, but not even just within the series, entirely with gaming. You see Nemesis face, pop up somewhere. The internet, that's Nemesis, that's Resident Evil. So that's going to sell the game. He really is still to this day, you know, uh, a great enemy like that. So I know the fears. People have fears that RE3 won't get a remake if it's not bundled in with RE2 for some reason, but I just see many opportunities that RE3 could be its own thing. But and I get the point though. I it remade because they're fearing that this is their only shot to get RE3 remade is if it gets bundled. There's some people that have said that to me, and I understand that fear, and it's definitely a risk, and we'll see. It's definitely
yeah,
plausible that they could bundle it, and that's why it's taking as long as it is. And that might be the big surprise that they have to show for us. I wouldn't hold your breath though. Don't
yeah.
on it,
No,
but
no, no.
it would be very, very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and they could still use the same advertisement like that they did in like '99 when they were advertising. No fear, it's in your blood. With the picture of Nemesis,
Yeah.
like to me that was actually really creepy, and I just there's a part of me that wants them to bundle it, and there's a part of me that doesn't. But if it comes to that, I'd be happy with it. But I just there's so much stuff that they can do that's new into Resident Evil 2, appeal to not only us, but to like casual audiences that don't know the story that well. But this game can get them to like be engaged with these characters, like Hunk, like Elza, and all these other characters. We can learn about uh the cop,
Marvin. Yeah.
Brown. Yeah, Marvin Brown. We can learn more stuff about him. I kind of want to know, like, I want to kind of see notes from him. You know,
Yeah,
just
he only has like one note from Resident Evil 3, but you could do a whole thing with, you know, him and yeah, I mean he's an Outbreak as well, but there's explore with him too. Yeah, he's definitely a fascinating character as well. Like even though he has such a small appearance in RE2, it's like people just want to know more about these characters. So this is really their shot, you know, to do
yeah,
that stuff like that.
hit it off the ballpark, man. And I mean, yeah, and I that's all I have for that topic too, because it's just something that I remembered from your past live stream that when when you had that one live stream after E3, I just remember that comment like saying, "What if they did add like a hunk storyline, or what if they
Mhm.
did add in the 1.5 storyline?" Like, yeah, that could be an absolute possibility. And with Hunk
Yeah,
and Ada storyline, they can put in to Resident Evil 2 remake, and with the 1.5, they can just make it into another Outbreak game, which fans have been dying for.
yeah,
But
I think that there's so many opportunities, and I'll still be happy if I get my fixed cameras and if all that goes right. But it just
yeah,
makes sense to do those things as well, like to add all that stuff in and do other games like Outbreak 3 or something. Yeah, it's just I really hope that it goes in that direction.
yeah. Let's see that. I guess that ends that topic, and then now we're into the last topic, which is the meaning of the future of survival horror if the remake 2 is good. And that basically what I'm saying is that what will happen, or what will the future be if if remake sells well, if it meets expectations, you know and what's your thought on that?
Um, Certainly, if they do it right and do it well, I think it will sell. And I just rhymed, and I didn't mean to. But like, really, if they do it well, it will sell. And then, what will happen is Resident Evil 3 would get a remake for sure. And if that sold even
Yeah,
really well, maybe Code Veronica would also get it. So there would be a bunch of remakes to happen. And I think there are for Dino Crisis to also get remade, for that series
yeah,
to get done. So what I see, if it does it right, I think the biggest thing is that people will see like, oh, now remakes are the trend. Okay, people want to go back and they want to do that thing. Which it should be a no-brainer because so many other games and stuff have they go back, or like what is it, this week is coming out with a Crash Bandicoot freaking remake,
yeah. And that's also something that I wanted to talk about, because the Crash Bandicoot remake is a huge thing, because Crash has not been a thing since was it I think it was Mind Over Mutants, I believe.
Oh,
But yeah, like now seeing, when I saw that last E3, I went bananas, because I love Crash Bandicoot with a passion. And just seeing that gives me hope that it will show Capcom that we want this remake, because people love something that hasn't been relevant for what, over 10 years, come back with the Crash remake. Okay, it's time for Capcom to start gearing up for Resident Evil 2 again. That's how I feel about that.
right. So that's definitely, I don't know about survival. Personally, I think at least within the RE series, there's it's a franchise for a reason. Like there are so many different types of fans, and I think you can cater to everyone by still maybe doing first person, or whatever's, I guess, trending in horror, I guess, or if you can find unique things to again be the leader in the gaming industry, do that for your numbered titles. Your numbered titles are get the most attention. They're going to be the biggest budget. So you want to really hone in the identity of the series. So horror, survival horror, and just keep doing that. I think Resident Evil 7 had a good survival horror element to it, and I think it needs to continue doing that. But you can also, like, Over the Shoulder, for example. You've got the Revelations series that has been doing that, and people have been speculating a Revelations 3. That more, what do I want to say? Yeah, more action. Definitely like a more action with like horror aesthetics. So maybe it's not a horror game, but it's just aesthetically looks kind of like a horror game. So there's people that like that. They like the look of a horror game, but not necessarily like try to scare me type of thing. So you could do Over the Shoulder that way, and then you could do all these remakes to get back lost over the years. And so I just think the series is big enough for that as a whole. And as far as like the whole survival genre in general, yeah, that's a hard one. I just know with Resident Evil, like, that's what they can do. And so I don't know what will happen in other genres, but like I said, yeah, remakes, there's so many games that can be remade that yeah, Parasite Eve or something. You know, like you can go back even to that, and also um you know, Silent Hill, which I think that's kind of what Evil Within is kind of doing. Evil Within is taking in some of the Silent Hill people, you know, since Silent Hill is basically a dead series at this point. Um, it, you know, unless they do another pachinko machine or whatever they are,
Oh,
which they shouldn't count those. I think Evil Within is going to continue to try to do that paranormal thing and try to. So I do see the more gore filled games and stuff like that, like Resident Evil. Like Resident Evil 7 has some gory freaking moments, you know. So I
yeah.
think Resident Evil is going to continue that way. I think Evil Within is going to try to capture the more psychological stuff. I mean Resident Evil elements as well, but so I definitely see Evil Within rising up and taking in a lot bigger audience. Like Evil Within, the first one, I'm a little impartial about. I think there was a lot of flaws with it, but there is a lot of promise in it, and I think the promise is in the second one. And I really want the second Evil Within. It looks really good, and so I just see that emerging, and yeah, I just think that again, remakes, yeah.
Yeah, I see that as well. Like well, who said something about the Dino, like Capcom's thinking about doing a Dino Crisis remake? I I forget who it was, but I think it was somebody in the Resident Evil team that said, they're kind of thinking about it. They don't know yet. But yeah, if this does great, like Dino Crisis is a series that I do really want to be rebooted because, like I said, today's technology and the sounds as well, like the dinosaurs could sound amazing in today's technology.
Yeah,
But
it would look great. It would be.
I just, but I mean, like you said, Dino Crisis could be remade, and Code Veronica 3 can be remade. You know, I just really hope this goes good because this is a game that's special to a lot of people, and I'm talking to a mass majority of people that love Resident Evil because and I think this is a good path to go to because if people buy this game, I I think it'll change the main series now. Like if Resident Evil 8 comes out, I think if Resident Evil 2 does good, they'll make Resident Evil 8 more horror oriented instead of just action. And that is something that I do applaud Resident Evil 7 for what I've played. They're kind of they're really trying to go back to that root of let's make this survival horror again. Like that's what I feel. You know, I hope that, and even with these new games, you know, Resident Evil 2, they could inspire people to make games, you know, that, you know, tell people that there is a market for survival horror games. Like, you know, it might bump up Allison's Road, Daymare 1998, Ad Infinitum, any game that, you know, comes up that says there's survival horror. You know, I just feel that, you know, that this is a really good chance for everybody, you know, everybody that loves horror, survival horror games, you know. And
Yeah.
I kind of do hope there's remakes and reboots in games for survival horrors, like Clock Tower. That game could be rebooted into something now. You know, Dino Crisis could definitely be something now, especially with Jurassic World 2 that might be coming out. Or, you know, just all these games, you know, Konami's not going to do anything with Silent Hill now. I'm sorry to say this, but Silent Hill is dead. Konami already made that into a pachinko machine. So yeah, that's all it'll ever be now. But I just really hope that this Resident Evil 2 remake does well, because this can save or have survival horror die out. Because, you know, this is, like I said, this is something really special for everybody. And
yeah, if they make RE2 survival horror and it does well, it'll definitely make all these games come to light, and survival horror will start to be more embraced. Yes. And what was I thinking about the well, with you know, it almost made its target. Like it was targeted to sell 4 million copies. It sold like 3.5 million. So it was pretty close to the target, and they'll definitely get to that 4 million point. I think they said they expect to get to 4 million by the end of the year. So it will have met its target basically. It will and I think in the short term, I definitely think in the short term survival horror will become a thing, but a lot is riding on Resident Evil 2, and because it will not succeed. You know, to me, it will not succeed if it turns into action or something. It just it won't, because I won't make videos about it. I really won't care about it if it doesn't resemble anything. You know, I'm not going to promote it. I'm not going to. No.
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of people like that I know that are just, you know, casual players. But if they read something like, especially when it's remakes, if they hear that, you know, it's nothing like the original, they just won't buy it. Like, I know casual players that won't buy games because it's not like the original.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, is that
because
the game
they don't want that change.
Yeah, they don't want it, and the game takes place in freaking 1998. You can't really change that, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
you get that sense that casual players, if they're like, oh, this takes place 20 years ago, like, why the hell do I care about that story, you know? And so I'm not saying that will happen, but that's one of my fears, is that if you're trying to revitalize something to a point where you're trying to modernize it way too much, it's not gonna feel like this is something like a remake that came in 1998, really disjointed in that way. I just don't. I think that people would be very turned off by that.
Yeah, and I do agree. I agree wholeheartedly about that. Like, they just need to, you know, do this right, just once, because, you know, Capcom isn't in like really good spot right now, especially with Capcom versus Marvel Infinite. Like, they kind of need this Resident Evil to pan out.
Yeah, I know
They're-
I know personally with me, if RE2 doesn't work out the way I hope it will, um, I wouldn't totally jump off Resident Evil completely, but I might be more casual. Well, I'd be way more casual about it.
yeah,
Even though 7, I good job, I still didn't compare to the originals to me, and so yeah, a lot is riding on this game, RE2.
yeah, and I just I really hope they do well with this, and that's all I want them to do is just please make this as original or as much as the original as you can do it. Don't try to go to the casual audience. Like, I don't care if it's
Yeah,
fixed.
I've seriously.
I care if it's fixed camera, but I don't care if you add in the option of over the shoulder because I'm never going to use that. That's not how the game is supposed to be played, so I'm not going to use it.
And
But I mean, just don't do what Resident Evil 6 did and just try to appeal to everybody.
well,
That's not.
that's one of my big points I've made before was that isn't that what screwed Resident Evil 6 up? Is
Yeah,
trying to please
it
everyone
it,
but
it,
pleasing no one.
it
Because
wanted to pander to the Call of Duty audience and then us, but it fell flat. Nobody in the Call of Duty side wanted it. Nobody in the horror side wanted it.
well, Resident Evil 6, I think when you're trying to please everyone, yeah, you please no one because what happens is everything's just watered down. Like you can't fully explore a game because Leon is one of 4 scenarios, so you can't have a long you can't have Leon's story be longer. They try to uh give different styles of play within each scenario, but in return, you got shorter scenarios. So you got like if let's say you were a fan of Leon's scenario and that's it, then why would you pay full price for something like that? It's like that's not a it's like I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. So I don't know. I think they learned their lesson, but because they did talk about that this year, they had a conference thing, and it's out there on YouTube somewhere, and they recognize that yeah, you can't try to please everyone, and that's why I think like doing the option of fixed camera, over the shoulder, first person, it can be done, but I do get a little nervous about what the result is going to be in that because um I'm just trying to think like let's say I'm trying to stream it and someone's like, oh, I don't like the fixed camera angle. I do the first person. I'm gonna be like, no, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna do that.
yeah,
Like
that's
you're
not
gonna
how
have
it's
a
supposed
lot of like it's not gonna be a great game to stream, maybe. I don't know. It's something I have to think more about, but I am worried about that.
Yeah, and I see where you're coming from this too. It's like you stream a whole lot of Resident Evil, like you stream Resident Evil games, and it's like people kind of like don't like the fixed camera because they say it's what like oh it's so 20 years ago, which actually it's probably better to make survival horror fixed camera angles than or first person. I mean but just not over the shoulder. Like I
Well,
really don't care
what's
about
in,
over the shoulder.
interesting is Rod Lima on YouTube. He made his own fan RE2 remake. He streamed it. He streams it regularly, and I it's funny.
I actually think I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about now. Yeah, okay.
And his version does all 3. It does fixed angle, over the shoulder, and first person. And I have to say, what's so funny is that I don't tell him I don't say play it in fixed camera angle, but like if he's doing over the shoulder in his stream, I get a little disinterested, I have to say. It's like just the pacing of the game just totally feels different in a over the shoulder view. And I have emphasized in the chat, like I'm like, oh, I really like fixed camera angle, but I don't like tell them how to play. I just say like, oh, I love that fixed camera angle, and that's what you would see across the board if they did like option of that. Is that it'd be a hard game to stream because a lot of people would be like, I like it in this way or that way, and you're gonna start running into those same problems of I don't know. I just
trying to please everybody. Yeah.
yeah. So I'm worried about that.
Yeah. And I mean, it is like camera angles are a huge thing in Resident Evil like trilogy because everything was based on that, and it would be really stupid for them to not take that foundation that works and just make something completely new. And to me, it wouldn't be innovative if they made it over shoulder first person. It probably just kill the game for me and just make me not want to play it. But I don't know. Like I said, I am trying really hard for to promote this, like promote news for RE2 Remake, and like I said before, they only have 3 chances for this year, and then a lot of people won't care about Resident Evil 2 Remake anymore. I know they have the Not a Hero DLC to get back to, but still there's 3 chances that they have, and that's Gamescom or Con, the Tokyo Game Show, and then PlayStation Experience, and that's it. That's the only thing that they have going for them. And if they don't take any of those chances, they're done. They're absolutely done.
I personally, I can't wait longer than Tokyo Game Show. And I what I mean by that is the holding my breath and thinking and talking about it. If it is not a Tokyo Game Show, I am not going to talk about RE2 probably at all until it's finally shown, because there's only so much you can say, and it's a lot of I really need it to come in September. And people would say, well, who cares when they show it, as long as they take their time. But it's like, they can show us something at this point. I'm sorry. There was a lot of people. I just pointed GameSpot. GameSpot is kind of like up there with IGN. Like, they're really a big game news, entertainment news kind of place. And GameSpot, even the guy there, I forgot his name, but he does a lot of Let's Plays of Resident Evil series, and he emphasized on GameSpot's podcast, he was like, I'm surprised that RE2 didn't show at E3. And it just validates a lot of what we were expecting out of E3. It's just social media is so interesting. Is like, there's so many people, there's so many people out there that just want to counteract you and say like, why would it be at E3? They got to take more time to make the game. Yeah. But it's like, literally after a year, they should be able to show something. I know people that expected stuff E3 last year, but we got RE7 instead. So now is the time.
And the thing is that there was a tweet that you had. What was it? Yeah. For the record, because I say where's Resident Evil 2 doesn't mean that I want the game out now. It just means I just want nudes. Or news. Oh God.
It's just like people. I'm not saying a lot of people, but it's just certain people. I think I touched on this last time I talked. Is that it might be just one person, but then there's like on the comment, 50 likes on the comment saying like, they need to take their time with it. It's like, yeah, I'm not saying I could have the game come out at late 2018 if it had to, if it has to be that good. But after 2 years of hearing my favorite game of all time and something that like we have memories attached to this game, and if you're gonna keep stringing me along for over 2 years, expecting me to like be okay with that. That's not right. I mean, they should know that people want at least some news about it, and this is probably the most kept secret thing. And it's like, I don't know why it's kept so secret. They already announced it that it's going to be out. What is the secrecy? I don't understand.
Yeah,
And had speculated maybe it's canceled or it's in development hell. There's a lot of like good, like, or you don't believe in your product is something actually Allison Court just said in a podcast was, well, that was more towards the if you're trying to save money on voice actors, it doesn't say much about your product and you don't think your product's going to sell well. So it does kind of add into that like nervousness.
And yeah, I see what you're trying to say, because like, yeah, it's not just a game. For me, it is literally a childhood memory.
Yeah.
I've grown up with Resident Evil 2 since, like I said, I was 5. And I mean, that's 12 years that I've been playing Resident Evil 2 to this day. Like I still play it to this day. And like you said, that, or just because we say that doesn't mean we want the game out now. We just want some clarification that everything's going good. Nothing's wrong with it. At least like a screenshot or something. Like,
yeah, they totally. Yeah, screen.
Like, make that teaser.
That's something. Yeah, but it's just funny that you say like we just want to hear that's going good, and they even botched that. In the last week, there was an interview with the producer. He said it'll be out soon. Did you see that? Like RE2 remake will be out
coming soon.
And then
from tips for everybody.
It was a misunderstanding.
So yeah, it's like, oh, come on, man. It doesn't. I just don't think it's right that we're just kept in the dark for no apparent reason, no news whatsoever for 2 years. Last year I was in Virginia, and I watched E3 and I was like, okay, yay, they might show something. And I was really surprised, like with Resident Evil 7, like especially when I watched Maximilian dude's reaction to Resident Evil 7. That was probably one of the funniest moments I've ever seen of Maximilian. But this year it's like, okay, they might tease out Resident Evil 2 and then show something in Tokyo Game Show, and it wasn't that at all. Once I saw Monster Hunter, I was like, fuck.
Yeah, me too. Yeah,
that was not getting.
You saw that,
getting
like,
a Resident Evil. We are
yeah,
not
yeah, that was when I was like, oh shit, that was the show. Yeah.
But yeah,
no hate on Monster Hunter fans, but like that
yeah,
was definitely
no hate whatsoever. Yeah, that was a general consensus. I think for me was like I hated, but the thing is that I don't hate Monster Hunter. It's just that at that time I was really pissed that we didn't get any news, especially something big like Resident Evil Remake, because with Crash, PlayStation didn't show love at all. Last E3 when they showed it, they just showed like the teaser thing, and then that was that. But
I think now we are beyond that with RE2 now. Like I don't actually, after E3 I was kind of like, you know what, I need actual trailer. I need actual game. I need actual gameplay, because now I'm toyed with and I need to know these answers. So
yeah. Now whenever someone says, oh, it's coming out soon, it's this, it's that, it's like, yeah, show me the Carfax, dude. Show me show me the, show me the facts that they actually are doing this. And that's why I wasn't too like overly excited for that coming soon comment.
Me neither,
like,
right?
Yeah, somebody might have fucked up right over there because it's probably fake, and lo and behold, it's just a mistranslation. I'm like, yeah, great thing I did not get overhyped then. But yeah,
Exactly.
I just really hope that this is good, because yeah, this could mean everything for survival horror as a whole. I just hope it does well, in all seriousness.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's all the points.
Yeah, I think
or the topics.
Yeah, I think yeah, they were. That's why I was like, I really like the topics, and I think, after talking with you, I would love to do another podcast at some point. And we could hone in maybe on some of these things even further. And I think because there's like I was going along, I was like, there's some of these points like you could dedicate one topic, like so I think that's something to look forward to, maybe perhaps. So I would definitely be down for something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, I've already planned like the next Survive Talks, which is episode 2, the COD situation with swastikas, women, and the women, and in the multiplayer and everything. Yeah, it's going to discuss a whole lot of that political correctness stuff. So yeah, juicy bits right there. So,
yeah, really. Oh.
but yeah, I just, I'm really glad that you did this with me, because it's like you're somebody that I would really love to talk to with survival horror stuff, because not a lot of my friends, especially YouTube friends, they're mostly fighter games and action games. But people like you like Resident Evil, and you love it to death. It's more like childhood stuff that's really good memories and everything, and we're dedicated to this kind of thing. And talking with you, it just makes me love this community a whole lot more now.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
And thank you for the invite. I these days I don't collab, and I don't do a lot of podcasts, but yeah, I saw what you had, all these points, and I was like, this is great, this is stuff everyone wants to know about. So, thank you. And I think you have a different perspective too, as well, with the series. So, I look forward to talking more about it. So definitely another time for sure.
Hell yeah. But yeah, if you guys want to follow him on Twitter or subscribe to his channel, it is in the description below. I do have my Twitter in the description as well. I have the Kojima PT video in there, and also I do have my own Discord server. So basically it has a Mortal Kombat chat, Injustice chat, it has a Killer Instinct chat, memes channel, a Resident Evil channel, all of that stuff. But yeah, if you all want to join in on that, feel free. The link's down below. Get your invite and join in. But that will be the end of the first episode of Survive Talks. Thank you all for watching. Bye.
All right, bye.